self to gratify your present self. It's a stupid game.
That's hot. That's hot.
So hot right now. So hot right now. So hot right now.
That's too much, man!
Don't be creepy.
I mean, this woman is dangerous, ladies and gentlemen.
In the Ice Age, how much taxes did people pay?
Jesus, I say that.
Aren't I a good guy?
China?
China.
China!
People from China, they love me.
Consequences.
Are you not entertained?
I see that you know your judo well.
I don't want reality. I don't want reality.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Well, good to see you all again. Oh, shit, my microphone's in a bad spot. There we go. Well, it is it, my space fans. Got a lot to cover today, so I hope you're ready. Guess it's time. Time for a journey through the unknown. Alright. we starting this one off today? Looks like America once again. Got a lot to cover here. Alright, first off, we're going to talk about some healthcare related issues. First, let's watch this video regarding the dangers of fast food.
Hello. Please leave a message after the tone.
Hi. Hi, Dean. Dad. Sorry. I just had a peanut. Talk to you later. Bye.
Oh, God.
Thursday marks 2 years.
I don't know why I love that so much. It's one of the shortest videos on YouTube. But it's amazing. It's a real voicemail, right? Like somebody's dad called them or something like that. Just had a peanut? Like what the fuck? Okay, alright. On to real, actual, serious healthcare related stuff. Just goofing around. Okay, this next one is from the AP. Abortion consumes U.S. politics and courts 2 years after SCOTUS draft leak. I forgot that's what started it. Stupid. What in the fuck? How is that what started all this?
Thursday marks 2 years since the leak of a draft of a Supreme Court opinion to end the nationwide right to abortion. The abortion landscape has been in flux ever since. There's been frequent court action in state legislatures, courts, and political campaigns, starting even before the final ruling to overturn Roe v. Wade was published in June 2022. There's been another round of major developments this week. Florida began enforcement Wednesday of a ban on abortion after 6 weeks of pregnancy. That's before many women realize they're pregnant. As one of the most populous states and a destination for women elsewhere in the South seeking abortion, is expected to have an impact across the region. That same day, Arizona lawmakers approved repealing a near-total abortion ban that dates to 1864, before Arizona was a state. The Arizona Supreme Court last month said that the old law should be enforced. Governor Katie Hobbs, a Democrat, is expected to sign the repeal. The ban could still be in effect for a time. Also Wednesday, South Dakota advocates turned in signatures as part of their push to put a state constitutional amendment to legalize abortion before voters in November. Similar measures are already on the ballot in Florida, Maryland, and New York. There are efforts to have votes in several others, including Arizona. Measures have gone before voters in 7 states since 2022. The side backed by abortion rights supporters has prevailed in every one, including generally conservative places such as Kansas and Kentucky. Most Republican-controlled states now have bans of some kind, including 14 where abortion is barred at all stages of pregnancy, with some exceptions. And most Democratic-controlled states have gone the other way, with laws or executive orders seeking to preserve or expand abortion access.
Okay. Just figured I would get us going on this. I mean, it just boggles my mind, some of these statistics. 14 states that have cracked down on abortion rights. What the fuck is going on? Somebody explain that to me. Okay, let's look at this from 6 hours ago, where apparently the Arizona governor has finally signed this repeal of the 1864 abortion law. Unfortunately, it will not take effect for 90 days, starting, I think it's June 6th or something like that. Not June 6th. What am I talking about? June, August. It's like August 6th, I think. Am I wrong? Wait, what? Hold on. Yeah, I think it's August 6th. Which means that there will be essentially 3 months where people are left in a vacuum of no legal options. Putting them in this sort of horrific, what do you call it? Something between two states. Wow, my brain just broke. Purgatory. Purgatory.
Almost a month ago, I stood in this very room detailing the dangers of the Arizona Supreme Court's decision to uphold the 1864 total abortion ban. In the weeks since, we've seen women and healthcare providers suffer from the chaos and confusion caused by this ruling. I've heard from doctors who were unsure if they would wind up in a jail cell for simply doing their job. Women who told me they didn't know if it was safe to start a family here in Arizona. These excruciating conversations are exactly why I have made one thing clear, very clear. This ban needs to be repealed. I said it in 2022 when Roe was overturned, and I've said it again and again as governor.
Okay. Well, she has in fact passed it, which is great, right? I mean, it doesn't necessarily change. I don't think it changes everything, and I need to look further into it, but I think there's still going to be some amount of restrictions on abortion, even with this passing. I have to look into it further, but it just means that it's not 1864 in Arizona. That's really what it means, I think. You know, now that I'm just thinking about it, I'm just going to look it up. Fuck it, it's still early in the show. Right, so there's still a 15-week ban in place. Right, okay. All right, let's look at this from 2 days ago. It's from NBC LA, where apparently a nurse's workers' comp claim has been denied due to her co-worker's failure to give CPR, which I just found insane.
When a nurse suffered sudden cardiac arrest at work, her relatives were stunned to learn that no one gave her CPR for more than 7 minutes.
Her family is questioning how that's possible at a facility connected with a highly regarded cancer center. The woman, who was devoted to her family and her patients, is now quadriplegic. Her workers' comp claim denied by her employer.
We have a warning now. Some of what you're about to see is difficult to watch.
She loved being a nurse. She really wanted to help people.
Andrea Morris lived an active life, working as a nurse, running marathons, and raising her 3 children as a single mom. But all that changed May 14, 2020. Andrea arrived to work at the City of Hope Cancer Infusion Center in Upland. According to court records, she told her supervisor, also a nurse, that she didn't feel well and worried she might have COVID, a constant concern in those early months of the global pandemic. Pam Bertino is Andrea's sister.
She was really worried about her kids and getting it from a patient or another medical professional and then giving it to one of her children.
So a lot of anxiety and stress.
A lot of anxiety and stress, just all the time.
But the symptoms Andrea worried were COVID-related turned out to be the first signs of sudden cardiac arrest. What you're about to see is difficult to watch, but Andrea and her family want you to see it.
She is literally moaning.
Nursing supervisor Karen Cerna recorded Andrea's medical emergency on her cell phone as she called 911. Both recordings shared with the I-Team by Andrea's attorney.
I can't get a blood pressure on her. She's completely moaning. Right now, like she looks like she's having a seizure.
Nurse Cerna mistakenly and repeatedly referred to what was happening as a seizure, but not getting a blood pressure reading, even manually.
I'm not seeing her move at all. She's not breathing? No.
In an ongoing workers' compensation trial, Nurse Cerna was asked by Andrea's attorney, once you couldn't get a reading on her blood pressure, it's a fact you didn't start CPR. Correct. This was a missed opportunity to save her, wasn't it? She responded, I don't agree with that statement. When asked, can you explain how videotaping helped her in that emergency situation? Did it help with her breathing? Did it help with her getting oxygen to her brain? Nurse Cerna said no.
It's really scary to think that your boss would take a videotape of you essentially going into cardiac arrest and having agonal breathing instead of reacting and giving CPR.
Attorney Keith Moore points to repeated failures to properly assess Andrea and to react.
There were 6 different chances she had to recognize, do something, but she did nothing.
And he says witness testimony shows it wasn't just her supervisor, Nurse Cerna, who was present.
There were 2 nurses, 1 medical assistant, and 2 doctors. All City of Hope employees.
One of those doctors later saying under oath he was not qualified to perform CPR.
There was a defibrillator very close by, oxygen very close by, and
this shit was mystifying to me. It's so there is so much incompetence happening here, and I just don't understand. Genuinely.
They just didn't react, and to me it's the biggest mystery of the whole thing. She was dying, her lips turned blue and then purple.
In court testimony, Andrea's friend and fellow nurse Alma Harris said it wasn't until she arrived on scene that Andrea finally received oxygen and chest compressions. But
did she die? No, she is in a wheelchair now. She's a quadriplegic, and I think that because of the lack of oxygen to her brain, she now has significant issues being able to talk, and it is fucked.
That was more than 7 minutes after that 911 call began.
Okay, we're going to do CPR. She's not breathing.
8 months in the hospital followed. Her family says they were forced to sell her home and liquidate her 401k to help pay for her medical expenses. She now lives with her parents, who are in their 80s. Her 2 sons also help with caregiving.
There's this woman that was an athlete, and she's lost her livelihood. She's lost her, herself as she knew it.
Andrea is now
Now, the fact that this insurance company won't pay out is fucking disgusting, first off. 2, I think she should be able to sue this hospital for millions of dollars. This is just outrageous. Whoopsies, I hit the wrong thing. Just fucking outrageous. The fact that a doctor would be like, oh, I'm not qualified to do CPR. Excuse me? Like, what? You're a doctor, right? Not like a lifeguard, but, somebody who's trained to save people's lives on the daily. Okay, on to differently troubling situation. This is from 9 hours ago, where apparently Walmart is recalling a great deal of ground beef after it has been found that their ground beef and patties may contain E. coli. No, I know they're trained in CPR. That's why I use that example. Right?
You will want to check your refrigerator.
Like, I'm just pointing out. I'm just going to point this out. But lifeguards get paid a lot less than doctors. You know? They're both trained to save people's lives. But lifeguards, we assume, are kind of like lower stakes, right? Even though they do CPR classes. But you would assume somebody who is a doctor, who has gone to school for, you know, at least like 7 years, right? To get a doctorate in medicine, would know what CPR is and how to do it. Right? Come on. Let's be real. That's ridiculous.
Or freezer, if you bought ground beef at Walmart recently, more than 16,000 pounds of Walmart ground beef has been recalled because it could be contaminated with E. coli. The recall affects several products, including patties and trays of ground beef, the ground chuck and ground sirloin as well. So far, there have been no reports of illness.
Okay. Well, thankfully nobody is
because of this government's decision, it is no
ill yet from that, but that was very, very recently that recall came out. Okay. All right, let's look at this real quick. This is from Global News from 6 hours ago, where the Canadian government is arguing over the decriminalization of drugs.
Because of this government's decision, it is no longer illegal to smoke crack, meth, or shoot up heroin in public spaces in British Columbia like parks, hospitals, and public transit. The British Columbia government has now begged the Prime Minister to reverse this decision. So, simple question, when will the Prime Minister once again make it illegal to smoke crack in a hospital room? Just the date.
This government is supposed to be in the business of protecting children, not killing them with exposure and access to hard drugs. The RCMP has confirmed that legal hard drugs.
You know, the conservatives in Canada just basically seem like American conservatives. Yelling about a bunch of stuff that basically doesn't seem to be all that real.
I don't want reality. Are being sold on the black market. In Abbotsford, the Soccer Association has to regularly sweep the needles for pitch. The Legion and many businesses in Mission have to deal with crack smoke every day. When will this government do the right thing and cancel their ideologically extreme experiment?
According to this guy, every business in Canada is just filled with crack smoke. It's a plague of crack smoke, apparently.
To legalize hard drugs and start protecting BC's children.
Hear, hear, hear. The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, as a mother of 3, including teenagers, I care so much about Canada and Canadians, and I agree, opioid addiction is a tragedy, it is a public health tragedy, and it is a public safety tragedy. But let me tell you what is putting the public safety of all Canadians at risk. Consorting with white supremacists and misogynists. That is a public safety risk. The Conservatives have an opportunity today to disavow that. They should do it.
Dangerous drug policy in BC allows people to smoke crack on a public bus, to shoot up next to a park with people, with children playing there, to blow smoke from meth in the face of a nurse in a hospital. Now we learn what the Liberals want to do to Toronto, what they've done to BC. The Leader of the Opposition sent the Prime Minister a letter asking him to reject Toronto's request. Are the nurses in Toronto...
Wow. I had no idea that all of the nurses in Canada were high on meth. This is an epidemic, folks. We gotta do something about this. I don't know what we can do about this made up epidemic, but something, maybe a made-up solution of some sort.
Getting people who smoke meth in hospital rooms, or will they finally reject the request? Speaker, their plan is killing 22 Canadians every day, and opioid deaths have doubled in this country in just 2 years. I can't believe that the minister from Toronto wants to...
It's the government's fault, not corporations or anything like that, or, for fuck's sake. All right, we're done with this. It's a ridiculous situation over there in Canada. A lot of yelling, and they should really just stop being so pearl-clutchy about this situation, and maybe handle it all a little bit more sensibly, I guess, would be my advice, I guess. But I'm certainly not at large to help Canadians govern. It's not really on me. I'm afraid nobody's asking me for help for that one. Let's move on. Let's talk about Google real quick here. Uh-oh, we're gonna get shadow banned. Alright, this is from 9 hours ago. Closing arguments begin in Google's antitrust trial. This is from CBS.
Closing arguments are beginning today in a trial involving the Justice Department's antitrust lawsuit against Google. The government and more than a dozen states say Google has turned its search engine into an illegal monopoly, but Google says people like to use the engine and could change it whenever they want. Matthew Perlman has been following the trial. He's a senior competition reporter for Law 360. All right, Matthew, so catch us up on what we've heard so far.
So we had a 10-week trial that ended in November. The allegations in this case are that Google has maintained its monopoly in the search engine market and the market for search advertising by paying to be the default search engine across a range of devices. So it has a revenue share agreement with Apple that makes Google the default search engine on iPhones and iPads. It has a similar agreement with Android device manufacturers that make it the default on those phones. And so the government is saying basically that the Google is using its monopoly power and monopoly money to maintain these monopolies.
All right, so closing arguments. What can we expect to hear for closing arguments?
Google's defense to this case is that the government is looking at the market all wrong. There's competition every time people pick up their phone, not just on a default. So when someone makes a search, there's competition there if they go to Amazon or TikTok. So that's a big point that Google's going to make. Google's also going to say that these companies are choosing us to be the default because we're the best. These companies are making a choice, a business decision of their own, and we're not making them do that. So the government's going to push back on that, though, and say, basically, if you are the best, then why do you have to pay billions of dollars to be the default on all these devices?
So what impact will the outcome of this trial?
I think it's a fair point. And while I personally don't use any other search engines, the fact is it's just it's the default on so many things that I use. If I just go up into my search browser, the search search bar, right? It just searches directly to Google every time, right? So I honestly don't even know if there are I know Bing exists. I know. I know Yahoo and some other things exist. I genuinely don't like Yahoo, but I've never used Bing. I know it's existed for a long ass time, and why aren't there more competitors, right? And the fact that they have been, essentially, using their capitalist ways to be able to get themselves entrenched in our lives in this way. I'm not sure it is a good thing. Granted, I'm not ready to switch to Bing. I might, but it just makes me think about it, right? And I think it's important to consider the fact that Google has this monopoly on so much. Does Internet Explorer actually have its own search engine? I thought it's just a browser. I never considered this. I just don't think about it. But that's sometimes what this show is good for. To think about things we don't think about all the time. Yeah, I mean, I'm familiar with Internet Explorer, but you could still go on Google and search on Google on Internet Explorer, right? I'm just trying to... I was just trying to figure out if you were saying that Internet Explorer is its own, like, search engine as well. I don't know why. I don't know why I did this today. It's not that important. All right, let's move on. This is from a day ago, where CNN has unearthed, well, not unearthed. This is a recent Trump tweet, I believe, of some kind or statement. Let's take a look at this.
We saw this very long interview that former President Trump, current Republican nominee Trump, did with Time magazine. And he was asked whether or not there was going to be political violence, or if he expected political violence in November. And he responded this way. He says, "I do think we're going to win. If we don't win, it depends. It always depends on the fairness of the election. I don't believe they'll be able to do the things they did last time. I don't think they'll be able to get away with it." David Chalian, whether or not there's going to be violence depends on the fairness of the election. I hear in that, I mean, Trump is invoking January 6th in regards to these protests, but this seems like something we may be revisiting again and again.
And yet it's not new for Donald Trump, right? I mean, we all remember the 2016 debate against Hillary Clinton, where he made clear as a first-time candidate that he may not accept the results to the election. And then we actually lived through the violence of January 6th in the aftermath of the 2020 election, and Donald Trump's silence during that time. So having language like this is no doubt, yet again, and of laying groundwork for the
Exactly. You know, that is exactly what it is. But we have to be aware of this shit so that we can, I don't know, preempt this kind of garbage, right? Because he is laying the, you know, the way ahead in terms of if when he does lose the election, what he, you know, he would like to have happen, right? Sometimes he says it directly, other times he says it in sort of circuitous manner, but it's always pretty clear what he's trying to get at with this kind of stuff, and it should be troubling to all of us. If you're at all a fan of the idea of democracy. Okay, let's look at this one. This is from CNN from a day ago, and they talked to Maggie Haberman on why she thinks Trump's recent day in court was so tense.
Illegal.
On J.D. Vance, he is someone who is, there are a lot of names always swirling around for Trump's potential vice president. But J.D. Vance is usually on the top of the list, when you talk to these people in Trump's orbit.
100%. There's a lot of people who think that ultimately it will be Vance. Now, to be clear, we have no idea what Trump is going to do, and it's a real fool's errand to try to predict who he's going to choose for anything. But Vance is very clearly a top choice, and part of it is because of what we just saw in that interview. He is really effective in defending Trump on television. Now, I think the Secret Service would also disagree that Mike Pence's life was not in danger, but that's a separate issue. Vance is communicating the message that Trump wants, both on the legal cases and against the media. And so there are a lot of reasons, including Trump's own personal comfort and chemistry. You know this as well as anybody. For Trump, so much of what he does with personnel comes down to chemistry and interpersonal relationships, and he really likes Vance.
He also brought up Matthew Colangelo there at the end. That is one of the prosecutors on the Manhattan District Attorney's team. When Trump was going after him, that was found to be a violation of the gag order. And the gag order was expanded, I should say, to include the people on Alvin Bragg's team, not Alvin Bragg, because there was a concern about them being put at risk, for implications like that. Trump's got another gag order hearing tomorrow. I mean, I wonder what you're making of how he's reacting to being fined $9,000, not a huge fee for him, but being told by the judge, if you keep doing this, jail is a real possibility.
There are some people around him who think that he is intentionally trying to see how far he can go and that he thinks that being jailed will help him, even if it's for a day. Most people I talk to who know Trump pretty well do not think that he actually really wants to go to jail. I don't think he wants to sit in that courtroom every day. Do people think that jail is going to be a more pleasant experience for him? But I do think that we see him often go up and touch the hot stove, and then he comes back a little bit, and sometimes...
I do love imagining him in jail. I feel like we need some like AI images of that. Damn you, AI.
He goes up again. He is always testing the bounds of what he can get away with. Now, he did take down the social media posts that he was ordered to take down yesterday. He did not, as you note, attack witnesses or people connected to the case, relatives of the court, et cetera, at his rallies today. But we'll see what happens going forward.
Yeah, Trump doesn't even like to stay in hotel rooms. I remember on foreign trips when he was president, he didn't even like staying in other hotels.
Morbius off to bed. All right, Morbius. Good to see you, buddy. Okay, what is next? Oh, okay, let's quickly look at this, since we're talking about Trump's trial.
Manhattan prosecutors on Thursday delved deeper into the hush money deals at the heart of Donald Trump's criminal trial. Jurors heard the last hours of testimony from Keith Davidson, a Hollywood lawyer who negotiated two of the hush money deals at issue. And they heard for the first time in court a recording that Michael Cohen, the former lawyer for Donald Trump, made of himself briefing Donald Trump about one of those arrangements involving former Playboy model Karen McDougal. Now, that recording has been public since 2018, but this was the first time it was introduced in the courtroom at the trial. Jurors heard Michael Cohen talking to Trump about having to set up a company to take care of a situation involving the former publisher of the National Enquirer, David Pecker. Pecker had made a deal with the Trump and Cohen and ostensibly the Trump campaign in 2016 to be the eyes and ears looking out for negative stories about Trump. Now, in the tape from September of 2016, Cohen talks about setting up this company, and then at some point, Trump responds, how much is it going to cost? He asks, what do we have to pay for this? $150, meaning $150,000. There's some other discussion about how they're going to pay, whether it's going to be in cash or using a check, and then that tape cuts off. Jurors listened intently, and they followed along with a transcript that was shown on monitors in front of them in the jury box. Trump looked incensed as he listened to this tape, listened to his own voice, and followed along, leaning in, looking at the monitors in front of him on the defense table.
Wow. You know, it's interesting that, so many Trump supporters are also supposedly, pro-law and order, but when they hear this kind of stuff, it's not going to affect them at all. In my estimation, you tell a Trump supporter that, you know, in his hush money trial, an actual tape was presented as evidence, right? I'm sure that they'll do all sorts of mental gymnastics to avoid accepting that it exists. It's just, this is crazy. This is our current state of affairs. Okay. Let's look at this next piece, which I found fascinating. Just truly interesting. Let's look at this from 7 hours ago, where Biden called Japan and India both xenophobic, that they don't welcome immigrants.
President Joe Biden was at a campaign fundraiser in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday evening when he made some controversial remarks about some of America's allies. He was talking about the importance of immigrants to the United States, and then he said that some of the other countries around the world, such as India and Japan, two key American partners, are, quote, xenophobic, and that holds them back from being able to access as much talent as they could from around the world. These comments, created a ripple effect, and have been traveling around the world, and people are wondering why the president was criticizing American allies and what he was driving at with those comments. The White House National Security.
Now, the fact is, there are some aspects of xenophobia to those nations, right? Totally, you can totally argue that fact, right? You don't even have to really do that much effort to do so, right? But then look at America right now. You're telling me you can't say the exact same thing about us right now? You can't say that a vast majority of Americans are xenophobic to some degree, right? Look at the way that the polls have been going. It's disturbing. But my main issue with this statement is that it's hypocritical. And not based upon, what American people believe, but based upon this. I mean, like, this is from February of this year. This is from the AP. In Joe Biden's 2020 campaign, he vowed to undo former President Donald Trump's immigration policies. This year, however, Biden backed a Senate proposal that would have set daily limits on border crossings, and Democrats are planning to campaign to re-elect him by emphasizing that Republicans caused that deal to collapse. Right? Like, he has not only enforced Donald Trump's previous border policies, right? He's attempted to add on, right? It's not he's throwing stones in glass houses over here, in my opinion. And just to, remind us of a little bit more of this is from 2 years ago.
Tonight, just feet from the U.S., hundreds of migrant families are at this tent camp in Tijuana.
as the Biden administration restarts one of former President Trump's controversial immigration policies. 30-year-old Sabina has been here with her 3 young daughters for 6 months. She doesn't know what's next. The Remain in Mexico policy, also known as MPP, requires asylum seekers to stay across the border while their cases are processed. It officially restarted today in El Paso and will soon expand to these other border towns. Migrant advocates say as this policy is implemented, camps like this one will keep growing, causing a potential humanitarian disaster.
It's disheartening. It's up.
So yeah, just gonna point that out. You know, if you're gonna call other countries xenophobic, you might want to not implement xenophobic and, you know, sort of dystopian, anti-human policies yourself. You know, and the fact is, I wasn't planning on doing this today. But I felt almost compelled to, because he chose to do that. I just found it to be absolutely mind-boggling. Alright, let's watch this next one. This is from Democracy Now! From 12 hours ago. Workers have power. This is covering the May Day protests from yesterday.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. We end today's show on yesterday's May Day activities in New York. Thousands of students, workers, and others rallied in Foley Square in Lower Manhattan to mark May Day.
Jamil Medbek. In this current moment, after 7 months of Zionist aggression against Gaza, is to underscore that there is a popular movement in support of Palestine. Not just the students that are mobilizing, but also organized labor across the United States. That's really important. After the mass arrests yesterday, we saw faculty at CUNY announce a sick-out for today. We saw NYU faculty announce a grade strike, and we've seen other actions being taken in support of the students. We know the United States manufactures bombs that are being dropped on the people in Gaza, the Palestinians, and the Arab population more broadly. And in that sense, having an organized labor movement that is willing to advocate for the Palestinian struggle, to chip away at the strength of Western imperialism more broadly, is essential. And for the Palestinians, the inverse is true. Like, it is our mandate to be part of a broader left in this country, to help to struggle for worker rights here, understanding that a stronger labor movement means less of an ability to enact this destructive foreign policy.
Okay, there's more of this, but I'm gonna get to this interview they did. Where is it? There.
In solidarity with the call, we have seen workers in Barcelona port declare that they will be stopping arms shipments destined to Israel. Workers in Belgium and transport workers have blocked the supply of weapons to Israel. At the port of Oakland, we also saw workers here in the US take concrete solidarity and action. Internationally, workers have been organizing in their workplaces and in their unions in solidarity and to heed the call. We see this also with the UAW here in the US and other unions who've been calling for ceasefire and picking up the call from Palestinian workers and Palestinian unions. This year, May Day comes at a moment where we Palestinians are subjected to an kind of undescribable onslaught, an undescribable violence, and it's an important moment in our history to remember that workers do have the power to shape the world. Workers do have the power to influence kind of what happens not only locally, but to influence processes of colonial violence and dispossession on a bigger scale. Brave students and faculty.
I just thought it'd be good to watch a little piece of that, where Democracy Now! Was in the streets during the May Day protests. What next? Seems like everybody's in the streets. It is it is interesting to see. All right, now let's move along to environmental news. Starting off in Texas, torrential rain caused flooding in the Houston area.
On campus.
Let's see this footage. Oh, damn. This guy tried to go Texas, and that did not happen. Wow. Wonder how these cars wound up in these weird spots. Maybe it was deep enough that people just couldn't see the road. I don't think this thing has like any volume or anything. Honestly, it's like starting to really stress me out just how many floods are happening all over the place. It's just giving me weird vibes right now. Too many floods. Alright, this next one is another flood, which has already killed a dozen people in Brazil. First, let's look at this one, where a news anchor caught a bridge just getting washed away behind them. Got a bunch of videos of this Brazil flood. We're just gonna keep these going.
Heavy rains in Brazil this week have led to at least 8 deaths in the country's southern state of Rio Grande do Sul. That's according to the Brazilian Civil Defense Service on Wednesday, who said that 21 people were reported missing. Flooding and high river levels were seen across the state, and authorities reported that over 1,400 individuals were displaced. In the state government's report on hydrological conditions on Tuesday, it said that there is a risk of flooding across the entire state as continued heavy rain is expected in the coming days. It also warned the possibility of flash floods and landslides in areas near river basins.
Oh, damn. Hold the phone.
The possibility of flash floods and...
Oh, maybe it's still young corn. For a second, I thought that was fully grown corn. It might be. It's hard to tell from the angle of this. If it is, that water is like 4.5 feet up, I want to say. It doesn't appear to be. Man, the amount of water in this flood, though, is insane.
Ready for battle against the forces of nature. The army has been deployed in southern Brazil to help respond to flooding so devastating, the government has warned it could become a historic disaster. Storms have caused extensive damage in Rio Grande do Sul state, with torrential rains triggering flash floods and landslides, destroying roads and washing away bridges. One was caught on camera while the mayor of Santa Teresa was filming a public advisory. Brazilian authorities say at least 3,000 people have been forced from their homes in more than 75 towns and cities. Many more have moved to shelters.
I wanted to stay in my house. I didn't want to leave, but with this weather, I can't risk staying.
The flooding has been so severe in some areas, helicopters searching for those stranded have had to winch people to safety after being unable to land. With more heavy rain predicted to fall, Brazil's president, seen here at a May Day rally, has promised the government's full support in response to the state governor's appeal for federal help. A state of emergency has been declared, and there are fears the flooding could become the biggest climate disaster in the state's history. Cara Legg.
That road is fucked up. For fuck's sake. Where are all the floods? It's easier almost to name the places where it's not flooding right now. Which is, you know, making me a little bit worried, if I'm being honest. Trying not to be. Alright, this one's got more footage of this, I think. But at this point, the governor believes that this disaster will be of a historic level. Now, I don't know what the biggest flood in Brazil ever was, but all these historical disasters are, man, they're really starting to pile up. What are we talking about? Why are we talking about disinformation now? It was sunny in an island. That is concerning. That is concerning. Okay.
Tonight, the deadly flooding disaster in Brazil. Days of heavy rains.
Holy fuck. Look at this.
Tonight, the deadly flooding disaster in Brazil. Days of heavy rains across the southern state of Rio Grande do Sul, triggering massive floods. Emergency crews using helicopters to airlift stranded residents to safety.
Infelizmente, será o maior desastre que o nosso estado já tenha enfrentado.
Aerial footage shows mudslides flowing down mountains, smashing into homes, gaping holes left in roads, others completely overrun. Even this animal caught up in the raging current. The floods killing at least 10 people, leaving more than 20 missing and forcing thousands to flee their homes.
A gente não sabe como que vai estar a casa da gente, as coisas da gente, que tanto trabalho a gente passa, né, no dia a dia para construir, né, e para conseguir comprar. E aí agora chegar do nada e a gente ter perdido tudo, né?
Local authorities now calling on the federal government for assistance. The president of Brazil, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, touching down in the region, greeting officials on the ground.
Eu quero dizer para vocês que não faltará.
Going to tell you that from the federal government, there won't be lack of help to take care of you.
A region desperate for assistance as it tries to keep its head above water.
This is insane. The amount of water that we just saw was... You know, I'm not a religious person. That was like biblical level water, okay? I have to watch that shit again. We're not going to watch this whole thing, but I got to watch this beginning part again, because what the fuck?
Tonight, the deadly flooding disaster in Brazil. Days of heavy rains across the southern state of Rio Grande do Sul, triggering massive floods. Emergency crews using helicopters to airlift stranded residents.
Like, I just can't believe that those first few clips. It looks like it got like hit by a tsunami from space. A space tsunami. Oh my god. Shit is insane. Do you think it's a sideways picture? This right here? You think this is sideways? But the trees are going straight up. Do you see what I'm saying? Or are you talking about a different one? You talking about this? I don't think that's sideways. Unless trees grow sideways. I assume that that's like where a waterfall. It's probably a waterfall, right? There's a bunch of big waterfalls in Brazil. But yeah, I'm assuming that's not a normal flow rate for that waterfall. Or it is now. It's funny, very funny. Thank you for that laugh. Shit is fucking scary though. And all right, let's just list them all right now. Where are all the places we've seen big flooding? Right? I mean, we were just looking at it. It's multiple places in the United States. We saw it in New Jersey. We've seen it in Texas. We've seen it in was it in Massachusetts too? I can't remember. But then there's also a bunch of flooding that's been happening in the southern hemisphere, especially in Africa, Tanzania. Was it Mozambique? I think, as well as Kenya. They're like practically underwater, literally. Saudi Arabia, not Saudi Arabia. Was it Saudi Arabia? Might have been Saudi Arabia too, but so wasn't Kazakhstan, Russia, like it's insane. The list is nuts. Okay, let's move on to this one, where the death toll in this southern China highway collapse has risen to 36 people. Wait, it just got deleted? It got deleted. Okay, never mind. Not doing that. Excuse me. You have no idea how many YouTube videos get deleted after I've already added them to my list. It's insane. Okay, I guess we'll skip that. We'll go to this. Wait. Oh, no, no, that didn't happen. Nope, I'm just reading badly. Alright, let's look at this, where the river Ishim, which is the river that's been flooding central, western Russia and Kazakhstan, has risen to a new record level, continuing to flood.
Соседей спасали, а потом уже... До окон затопило, так как? Вот так вот.
This flooded up to the windows like this.
Живем, а дом свой оставили.
We live in someone else's house.
И картошка, и все там, как вот жить-то?
Potatoes, and everything left out there. How can we live? Well, it just continues to get worse over there. I know when we first started looking at it, I thought it was going to be over quickly. Instead, it's been going on for weeks now. Just continuing to get worse. It's genuinely alarming. Okay, now let's look at this Chinese highway collapse, which apparently killed dozens of people.
At least 36 people have died after a highway collapsed in southern China. It happened near the city of Mezhou in Guangdong province. Heavy rain and flooding caused a section of the road to cave in, and more than 20 vehicles plunged down a ravine in the mountainous area. Well, Al Jazeera's Katrina Yu has the latest from Beijing.
This highway collapse took place in Guangdong province's major city at 2 a.m. on Wednesday morning, just as China was entering its 5-day-long Labor public holiday. Nearly 18 meters of this road crumbled into the mountainous slope below. It was dark, this area is remote, and vehicles were going quite fast, about 100 kilometers per hour. Tragically, 20 cars in all tumbled down below and several dozen people were killed. At least 30 people were injured and are currently recovering in hospital. Now, a large part of that highway has now been closed, about 20 kilometers, and emergency teams are working in that area. The cause of the accident is still being investigated, but we do know that over the past few days, Major City has received heavy rainfall, and that region is currently on its second highest alert for flooding. The rainy season.
Yeah, that was the main point of this video, was to, point out that this kind of stuff is oftentimes a result of climate change related shit, where when it was built, a certain amount of rain was expected, and now much more rain or much less or more of other things are happening and causing issues with our infrastructure, such as that, and or in China, and for fuck's sake, like, the aftermath of that is insane. It's just, I can't even imagine just driving and then suddenly being in a pile of dirt 50 feet down, or however far that was. Probably was further. Okay, let's look at this in Indonesia, where we talked about this before, but it has now erupted again. So this is, we got a bunch of videos, like 3 videos of this, where it shows the volcano Mount Ruang erupting in Indonesia again. This is the second time in, I think, a week and a half.
Ini saat ibu bubuk Kang. Busuk Kang. Busuk.
This shit is nuts. Cisco? Oh. Forgot this had subtitles. My bad. Following the eruption, locals and tourists were warned of a possible tsunami, and to not go within a 7-kilometer radius of the island. Mount Ruang is located in Indonesia's North Sulawesi province and has a total of 843 residents who live on Ruang Island. Indonesia's Disaster Mitigation Agency revealed all residents of the island are moved to Manado, located roughly 100 kilometers away. The BNPP shared footage following the eruption, which showed lightning striking down as ash shot into the air. Whoa.
Kabar guys. Udah gila tadi baru-baru kan. Kita lihat kaget no. Jatuh kita guys. Duh.
A resident of Thulandang Island, 95-year-old Roslyn Salandejo, recounted the moment she saw the eruption. The mountain exploded. Wow, it was horrible. There rain of rocks twice. The second one was really heavy. Even the houses far away were hit. Okay, let's just look at this one as well. There's a ton of ash right now that's going into the atmosphere. We do not need that. There's been a ton of erupting volcanoes, which is something we genuinely can't do anything about. Started erupting on April 30th, spewing lava into the air and raising fears of a possible tsunami. Authorities are evacuating residents from the neighboring island. Apparently there's risk of the volcano just falling into the ocean. Which, yeah, I guess I could see that. Okay, now this next footage is like better quality footage of this lightning, which looks insane. Like, it is crazy. Look at this shit. It's Mordor. Started with an earthquake, and we went up the hill and felt we knew this was coming. At 2 a.m. we tried descending, it happened, it erupted. It was massive. We tried heading back to town, but rocks started raining on us.
Ada api, ada petir atau? Iya, api, petir.
Yeah, I just thought those images were fucking insane. Yeah, volcanic lightning. Okay, let's talk a little bit about coral. How's that sound?
When you think about all the habitat types on Earth that are sensitive to climate change, obviously ice comes to mind. But the other thing that comes to mind is coral reefs. Healthy reefs are vital. Search for practical, scalable solutions has brought me here to the Maldives, because this is the epicenter of climate change, coral reefs, and practical science. This ecological time bomb.
No kidding me. 500,000 people on these things? That is... That is genuinely concerning. Good God. And then they're not the only people that are this close to sea level. In fact, who were we just talking about that are already underwater now? Was it Bangladesh? No. Was it? No, it might have been.
Last big bleaching event in 2016 damaged 73% of the coral here, and it's struggling. I'm here to meet top marine biologists from opposite sides of the globe who are coming together for an ambitious rescue project that's never been tried before.
How we settle them. And doing it at scale. And doing it at scale. But in terms of making it a production system on the reef, it goes into a completely different world, and that's what I've been exploring for some.
Okay, hold on. We can't watch this whole thing. No way do I have time for that. Although it is the the photography for this is pretty fucking amazing. Kinda gets me lost. It's just so beautiful. Okay, we're gonna start like right here.
Long-term experiments on coral restoration. See active coral spawning.
Okay, now I'm gonna zoom us forward to where they actually do that.
And it catches in sort of a mosquito net, really, and just traps everything up there because that spawn just wants to rise to the top of the surface. Oh, that's one of them. Just going up to the surface, little globules.
You're lost, Gabby? So they're attempting to harvest what do you call it? Little polyps, I guess you call them. Like it's like a sperm and egg of a coral. All these little things floating in the water right now are basically baby corals. And so they're trying to capture some percentage of them, be able to bring them back and attempt to what's the word? Grow them in different environments, and by using different methods, hopefully improving the genetics of the coral, by way of doing that, hopefully making them more resilient to the adverse effects of climate.
That's where this entire reef comes from. That beginning. There's all these guys coming out now. You can really see it now. Just kicking off. Oh! It is just great. Science in action. To see it in front of me. To go today, find this coral, know that it might be breeding tonight, and then come back here. It's just amazing. Absolutely amazing. Good job, Peter. That's fantastic. Thank you. Honestly, thank you. This is...
Okay, now let's move this a little bit
160 years. A hole on Florida's reef. And brutal. But
okay. Is there anything else in this that I wanted to catch? Okay. Just wanted to watch that, just to remind us of, the seriousness of what's going on with climate change right now. How endangered coral reefs are, and, I think we all know that they are intrinsic to our way of life and survival, and, figured we would look at some of the effort related in trying to save them. Obviously, we can do our parts, and our countries need to take action on ending, fossil fuels to make any of that really feasible for a long-term strategy. Supercharging reefs is great. The fact that we figured out a way to do that is amazing, but if the climate continues to get worse, I do worry it just will not, it won't add up, right? If we continue to make it worse, it certainly will make it too uphill of a battle, I think. Okay. Let's look at this from 6 days ago, where a Cambridge scientist thinks he's just discovered alien life.
This is the story of the week for me, this. Imagine being Professor Niku. Professor Niku is an astrophysicist at Cambridge University. Picture the scene. Professor Niku is quietly studying the data gathered on yet another exoplanet, discovered some unfathomably far distance away from Earth. And as Professor Niku stares at the data of yet another exoplanet in yet another solar system, they notice something. This is where the suspenseful music would come in during the Netflix episode of this discovery. The professor stares harder at the data. "It can't be," he says. "Is it life?" The James Webb Space Telescope is set to turn its gaze towards a distant planet, K2-18b, in another solar system, to investigate one of the most tantalizing hints of alien life ever discovered. This, folks, could be it. And our protagonist, the scientist who may have discovered life out there in the universe, is Professor Niku Madhusudan, Professor of Astrophysics and Exoplanetary Science at the University of Cambridge, who joins me live. Thank you very much indeed for coming on the programme. Right, I think we've got the deeds to your life stories sewn up here. We now own the rights to this. Tell us where and when you found this.
So last year, we had some JWST observations with the James Webb Space Telescope of this planet, its atmosphere, and we detected for the first time ever carbon-bearing molecules like methane and CO2 in its atmosphere, and did not detect other molecules like ammonia, which said that it's likely to have an ocean underneath the atmosphere. But we also saw a tentative sign of this molecule dimethyl sulfide, which we weren't sure, but still, even the very possibility of its being there is enormous.
So this is dimethyl sulfide.
Yeah.
That's the important gas. And why is that gas so important?
It's important because on Earth, it is produced only from life, mainly from microorganisms in the Earth's oceans. And it has been known to be a robust biomarker if detected in planetary environments. And it had been predicted to be so. And we had been looking for it. And that's why it's super important.
Cool. Unfortunately, just to, I don't mean to burst your bubble, but I looked it up, and unfortunately the planet that they found this on, K2-18b, is about 110 or so light years away from us. And just for context, I believe a light year is like, it takes like 12,000 years currently with our technology that we have to travel. So it would take like a million years to get there. So it's not looking good in terms of us getting to K2-18b, K2-18b. I just thought it was fascinating. As it is apparently a marker for plant life, which means we found a planet with plants, which we could theoretically go to if we had a million years to get there. Sorry, I don't have better news. I was really hoping it was nearby. LBC has great conversations. They do sometimes. That's for sure. But it's, you know, they have all sorts of different hosts and shows. And I would say each show has sort of different political leanings. Like James O'Brien, or I'm trying to think of all the different names of the shows. Okay. Well, I hope you've all been enjoying the show so far. If you haven't already, hit that like button and do consider subscribing. Yeah. Also, click that Patreon link in chat. Come on. Alright, chat, you grab a drink, take a dip. Gonna have a little quick space intermission. I'll be right back. Alright, let's do it here. What do we got? Is that Will Smith or Snoop Dogg? That is Snoop Dogg. The Snoop, D-O-double-G. Okay, let's quickly stop in Colombia here as the first place on the global news list, where Colombia has cut ties with Israel. President ends diplomatic relations over the war. Genocide.
President Gustavo Petro made the announcement in front of...
Yeah, Michael Brooks. Yep, that was added a couple of days ago by one of our Patreon supporters.
President...
Well, don't do that.
Gustavo Petro made the announcement in front of tens of thousands of his supporters in Bogotá at the end of the May Day parade.
El gobierno del cambio.
The government of change of the President of the Republic announces that tomorrow we will break diplomatic relations with the State of Israel for having a government and a president who is genocidal. Today, all of humanity in the streets by the millions agrees with us, and we agree with them. The times of genocide, of the extermination of an entire people, cannot return before our eyes. We cannot remain passive. If Palestine dies, humanity dies, and we will not let it die.
Petro has been a critic of Israeli actions in Gaza since the start of the war, formally requesting to join South Africa's case accusing Israel of genocide at the International Court of Justice. Israel responded by calling Petro an anti-Semite, but his supporters say their president is right.
It's the right and necessary thing to do in countries that pretend to be truly democratic and that respect international law. Israel is committing a genocide, killing children. Cutting ties is the bare minimum necessary to stop Zionism responsible for the death of thousands of Palestinians.
But the decision will be divisive in a country with traditionally close commercial and military ties with Israel.
Petro's announcement was a calculated move to shore up support and excite his base at a time when he's struggling to move forward its ambitious social and economic reforms.
Regardless of some of the potential political reasons for doing it, I think it's absolutely the right decision. I just thought it was a great story for us to start off global politics and such with. Funny that we have a British person here for this next one. As a Galactic Lord, I thought that we would do this next little segment here about a different galactic individual by the name of Count Binface, who's currently running for London's mayor.
Hello voters, Count Binface here. I have come to College Green in Westminster for two reasons. One, to share with you my amazing manifesto to be London Mayor. And two, because David Lord Cameron seems to think that the clever thing to do is release social media videos where you walk confidently to camera and just spout a load of gibberish. So get a load of this, Dave. I am the only candidate who is offering two price cap croissants at £1.10. Blame Liz and Rishi for the extra 10p. I will rename London Bridge after Phoebe Waller. I will make Claudia Winkleman's Fringe Grade 1 listed. I will pledge to build at least one affordable house. That's
Wow.
right, voters, get a load of that. I will tie the mayor's pay to that of nurses for the next 100 years.
That's a
I will ban
policy right
speakerphones
there.
on public transport, with offenders to be forced to watch a box set of The One Show. Only Binface is offering you the kind of policies to put London on the map. On the 2nd of May, you know what to do. Make your votes count.
Now, I'm going to point something out, okay? You know, Count Binface, he's great, but he's only a count. I'm a lord. I'm just going to point that out first. Also, I got a real helmet. He has a bin. Okay? Just pointing out some obvious things here, not saying he has some policies. Some of them might not go far enough, but I think some of that I can truly get behind, and I'll be voting for him. Oh, wait a second. Was I supposed to? Damn it. All right, let's watch this very hard-hitting piece.
Seb, you're French, right?
I'm Swiss, actually.
You're Swiss. Does the Swiss have anyone like this?
The Swiss have anybody like this?
Yes.
We have an alien who sells chocolate, if that's what you're asking.
It's sort of. So, as in, it sells chocolate for a chocolate company?
Yes.
So there's no gap in the market. They've already got an alien. What's the alien called?
Milka.
Milka? I thought that was a cow. Is that cow an alien?
It's a cow-shaped alien.
A cow-shaped alien?
So maybe you could have a humanoid alien.
Things you learn. I never knew that cow was an alien. I'm supposed to know these things. There we go.
Keep track of your intergalactic patriots, I suppose.
She could be a competitor to me. Yes, interesting. Do all the Swiss know she's an alien, or just you?
Pardon?
Do all the Swiss know that this cow is an alien?
Oh, it's common knowledge in Switzerland, yes.
I think we might have a scoop here. Does anyone in the UK, Ruben, did you know that the Milka cow was an alien?
I had no idea too.
Ewan, did you know?
No idea.
James, did you know?
I didn't know.
I think we found a scoop here. The Milka cow is an alien. Well, guys, I think we can take the rest of the day off. I think we've got a scoop.
All right, just a little bit of silliness. I figured we deserved it, as we've been looking at a lot of tough stuff all week. You think that we'd be besties? Entirely possible. I think a galactic ally, an alliance could be formed. I've never formally had the opportunity of meeting Count Binface, but he does have some great ideas. Okay, moving on to some people protesting some bad ideas. Let's look at this, where protesters blocked a coach taking asylum seekers to Bibby Stockholm in London.
Refugees are welcome here! Refugees are welcome!
Dozens of demonstrators blocked the coach before it was able to pick up passengers, before police arrived, triggering a standoff with protesters. Police carried out arrests and removed people from the bus, who regrouped and blocked the road. The bus was eventually released after the protesters were cleared from the road. His defense policy is awesome. I honestly am not familiar with all of his policies. As as an American / space lord, I'm afraid I'm not legally allowed to vote in your elections. And so, keeping track of his policies for me are slightly less meaningful, I would say. But I do like his vibe, for some reason. Can't put my finger on it. Okay, moving slightly north to Dublin, police dismantled a tent city where asylum seekers have been camping out. This is from 17 hours ago. Wait, what just happened? Hold the phone. What are you doing? Go backwards. There we go. Irish police dismantled about 200 tents outside Whoops, I missed that. I was trying to do too many things at once. What just happened? Fuck it. Ten said he first appeared about a year ago on Mount Street in the center of the Irish capital. Some tents were moved with mounted cranes. Jesus Christ. Is this necessary? The street was closed while the dismantling took place. Ireland is trying to accommodate a record number of refugees. Refugees are not a threat. Seeking asylum is not a crime. I like these signs. Unfortunately, it's being criminalized right now. And the current policy in Ireland has been thrown into the balance recently, and I'm not entirely sure about what the reasoning behind it was, but the changes that recently happened have caused this whole thing to start happening in Ireland as well. I think the first chain of events was the new asylum law in the UK. I could be wrong about it. It's a little bit confusing to me. I'm not, you know, if I'm being perfectly honest. Partially because the whole fact that Ireland is split in two and all this other shit, it genuinely does sort of throw me off. Either way, not a fan of what's happening here. Okay. Because I believe at one point they were protecting asylum seekers, and then I don't know what the actual reason for them changing that policy was. Okay, let's move to Africa real quickly. A couple of stories here. It's just the usual UK contradiction. That is unfortunate. DJ X, good to see ya. Good to see everybody. I just happened to be looking at chat when you said sup. What's next? Yes, Africa. This one, still kind of relating to the UK. Very much so, in fact. This is from 16 hours ago, where the United Kingdom has returned looted Ghanaian artifacts on loan after 150 years. Now, when I first read this title, I misunderstood it. You'll see just how ridiculous this all is, but it's technically good. Like, I'm not saying it's bad, but the way that it's being done I find very odd.
Celebrations in Ghana as crowds gather to witness the return of what's been described as the nation's crown jewels. It's the first time they've been back on Ghana's soil since they were taken by British colonialists 150 years ago. The Asante King underlined the significance of the moment.
The items that came back virtually is the soul of the people of Ashanti. Yeah. We are displaying this for you to see that the items that were stolen, looted, in 1874, not all of them has returned, but that what we have here still embodies the soul of Ashanti.
The 32 items were taken by the UK during the colonial era. Some were looted during wars with the Asante Kingdom. This long-term loan took decades to negotiate and marks the silver jubilee of the Asante King. The Victoria and Albert Museum hopes this will be a foundation for stronger cultural links in the future, and a way to move on from a difficult past.
No, I personally think this is great, aside from the fact that if you didn't quite catch that, Britain is technically loaning it back to Ghana. You heard that correct. It's on loan. Granted, 150 years is a long-ass time, but essentially, the British Museum is expecting that shit back, dog. Like, what? I'm sorry, you stole it, and now you're gonna loan it back to Ghana? Excuse me?
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
Acknowledge the very painful history surrounding the acquisition of these objects, a history tainted by the scars of imperial conflict and colonialism.
European and US museums are under growing pressure to return stolen African items to their place of origin. Benin and Nigeria have also been negotiating similar deals. The Asante treasures will be on display to the public at the Manhia Palace Museum for the next 3 years.
I mean, it is technically good, and honestly, I kind of hope they just keep them. Like, come on. Come on, British Museum. How much other stolen loot is in there? I feel like it's just this tiny fraction of what exists there. Including, what is that other, doesn't it also have like this massive vault of stuff that's just not even on display? Pretty sure it does. Or maybe, is that the royal something? No, god damn it, I don't know. Oh, you Britishers. Okay. Speaking of colonialism and whatnot, this is from 11 hours ago, where now U.S. troops are withdrawing from Chad as well. I believe we spoke about this, what was it? Like a week ago, maybe? But the UN peacekeepers left Chad around that time, and now U.S. troops who were also there are leaving as well.
American troops are no longer stationed in the African country of Chad. The military withdrew about 60 troops from a French military base in Chad this week. Many of them were part of the U.S. Special Operations Task Force. The withdrawal comes after Chad leaders sent a letter threatening to cancel their security agreement with the U.S. The troops have been moved to a base in Germany.
Just going to a different U.S. base, NBD. But just figured we'd keep up with the current, what do you want to call it? Like the geopolitical situation in Africa. And more specifically, troop movement, as there's been a bunch of that kind of shit going on over there. Whether it's us, or UN troops, or Russian troops, or who else is over there? No, I think there's some are there French troops? There might be. I'm trying to think. Oh god. What's next? All right, let's go to Asia. I've stuck Ukraine and Russia in Asia today, for whatever reason. Just felt right today. Let's go to this one. This is from 9 hours ago, where a Ukrainian energy workers are struggling to repair damage from strikes on the energy grid. What the fuck was that? My soul just bleeds when I see such giants which were built by
увидев такие масштабные, таких гигантов, которые были построены миллионами людей,
and in which so much kindness and love were invested.
Добра, любви ко всему этому, и это все
уничтожается
за считанные секунды, за считанные мгновения.
Therefore, I will work for the benefit of the DETEK. Well, I can still work at those enterprises.
пока еще могу работать на таких предприятиях.
Yeah, these places are completely fucked. The story didn't specify what kind of power plant that was. Honestly, my guess is coal. Okay. Let's look at this next. It's from 9 hours ago. This is NBC News. This is a story on Brittany Griner, who has revealed humiliating treatment and conditions inside a Russian prison. Now, if you don't recall who Brittany Griner is for some reason, she is a WNBA player who was arrested in Russia for possession of, I think it was a joint's worth of weed or something like that, and has been there now for fuck, how long has it been? Has it been over a year? Hold on, I gotta look this up. Oh, it's been over a year. Holy shit, it's been 2 years. Jesus Christ. How's it been 2 years? For a joint. It's insane.
Brittany Griner is now revealing the harrowing conditions that she endured in a Russian prison. The basketball star told New York Times Magazine that the toilet in her first jail cell was a hole in the ground and that she had no soap or toothpaste. She used torn-up T-shirts as towels and toilet paper.
Yeah, Griner says the guards, they heckled her, they made lewd jokes, and they asked about her genitalia. One time, even after taking a shower, Griner says a guard stopped her and pushed aside her towel with a baton to see her chest. NBC News correspondent Kathy Park joins us now. Kathy, these allegations, I mean, this account, it's harrowing, right? I mean, what else is she saying about the effect of all this?
Yeah, that's fucked up. Pooping in a hole, no soap or toothpaste, and then also sexual harassment? Oh, great. That sounds fun. 2 years of that?
Mental health.
Yeah, in that interview, Brittany Griner just talked about being mentally and physically pushed to the limit. There was a point during her time in incarceration when she worked 12 to 15-hour days. She was cutting large pieces of fabric, and she said that the fabric was being used to create Russian military uniforms. But there were a couple of things that she said she leaned on during this difficult time. She said there were small gestures of kindness. Welders created a larger bed for her because she's very tall. Her legs would often dangle off the bed and, would just flare up old sports injuries. Also, she mentioned befriending the head chef who spoke English, and she actually brought her on to work in the kitchen. There was a woman she described who created mittens for her and also a larger prison uniform to keep her warm. But Brittany also described leaning on faith. She had a Bible. She had permission to have a Bible in her cell, and she studied.
Okay. We don't need to know about all of that, but first part of it's completely fucked. I'm glad that she's at least getting through it. She would need a larger uniform, though, for sure. I think she's like nearly 7 feet tall. Hold on, I'm looking it up. She's 6'9". Yeah. Just a few inches shy of 7 feet tall. She's a literal giant human. Just let her play basketball. One joint. Come on. Come on, Russia. What the fuck are you doing? Okay. Okay, yeah, let's look really quickly at this from 14 hours ago where Prime Minister was he President Emmanuel Macron met with Prime Minister Kishida in Japan on bilateral talks. Now, what it is they talk about, they literally go into zero detail on that. It's a meeting between two leaders, kept completely secret, and really just speculation as to what they might be talking about. If I had to guess, you know, as a guy who likes guessing sometimes, you know, Emmanuel Macron, he's president of France. They're in NATO. So you know, like, there's been a lot of stuff going on in the Asian continent, if you will. And so, you know, just trying to shore up allies, you would think, is at least maybe what's going on. The thought I just had in my... I hate that thought. Okay, get that out of my head. Wait a second. Did I never take that note down? Oh, I'm an idiot. Whatever. Okay. It's my life. Okay. Now we're going to look at some more stuff involving the protests that have been happening in the United States and abroad. First, let's look at this. It's from Al Jazeera English from 20 hours ago. Anti-war protests in the U.S. Rallies held in New York to support detained students. Oh, wait, no. First, wait, hold on. Wait, no. I'm way ahead of myself. God damn it. I scrolled down and thought I was still where I was. Where was I? Oh, yeah. Up here. Okay. God damn, I was like 4 videos ahead. This is where we're starting. How student journalists are covering campus protests. This is from the AP.
We've spoken to a lot of people who are very established in the media industry who have said who have basically prepared us for what's to come in terms of layoffs and the instability of this industry. But I think in the past few days we've really realized the importance of having reliable, accurate and fair coverage of what's happening, and student journalism is very important in this situation. Separating my student identity to my journalism work has definitely been something that I've been thinking about a lot recently, and I think at the moment I'm definitely just trying to report as accurately and as fairly as I can and place my sentiments about the conflict aside.
There was a possibility for us of arrest, or at least a worry that we would get arrested while reporting on this, so just as a safety precaution we wrote phone numbers onto our arms of people that we could contact in case we lose our phones or whatever happens. One girl and I, my friend Claudia and I, were kind of in a tag team together when the cops came in. We were making sure that we were both safe, that we were both staying together. In the middle of the night, after the cops kind of hurried us back into Pulitzer Hall, by the way, told us if we step foot outside of Pulitzer Hall, we will get arrested. So they were really restricting our reporting there. She came in and she immediately started writing a breaking news story about it. So we've been working fast.
Okay. What is next? All right, yeah.
This is Democracy.
Yeah, that's what I thought. All right, we're going to move on to this next story from Democracy Now!, where they interviewed a former Brandeis president, the college Brandeis, on the Gaza protests in college campuses. where he says that the schools must protect free expression.
Now, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Nermeen Sheikh.
As we continue to look at the widening police crackdown on pro-Palestinian student protests, we're joined now in Washington, D.C. by Frederick Lawrence, the former president of Brandeis University, which was founded in 1948 by the American Jewish community in the wake of the Holocaust. Frederick Lawrence is also the former dean of the George Washington University Law School and a former visiting professor and senior research scholar at Yale Law School.
Frederick Lawrence, welcome to Democracy Now! It's great to have you with us. You just heard our first segment, what's happening right now. Police raiding UCLA campus, dismantling the Gaza encampment, and arresting students. You heard about the counter-protesters attacking the journalists and those in the encampment. And then, of course, we just came out of the police doing the very same thing at Columbia University, dismantling the encampment and going into Hamilton Hall that the students
I'll be right back, chat. Otherwise, my voice is going to turn into Amy's voice.
had occupied. Can you respond to what's happening right now and what you think should be the path and the response of universities around this country as students rise up in horror about what's happening in Gaza?
I think when students rise up on any issues around the world or on their local communities as well, universities have to begin with first principles. We exist for the purposes of creating and discovering knowledge. That requires free expression and protection for free expression. We talk about balancing free expression on the one hand, safety on the other, and although I understand that, it somewhat misses the point, which is to say safety is essential for campuses, but safety is instrumental to protect the fundamental goal, and that's free expression. So in a case like what happened...
Exactly. I mean, like, the fact that UCLA didn't call the cops in when they've been doing it for other reasons, right? While these kids are, well, not kids, while the students are being attacked, right, by instigators, people who were there to start fights, came armed. It's just, it goes against what I believe to be one of college's main duties, which is protecting students.
At UCLA, there's an interesting example there of sometimes universities can do too much, but sometimes they can do too little. And clearly one of the things that came across was the need for intervention sooner to protect the violence that was going on at UCLA. But I think I would even take the camera back a long way further and say that the real answer here is work that takes place a long time before these events happen. You have to build relationships on campus. You have to know who these student leaders are and student groups are so that the kinds of conflicts that we're seeing now don't happen the way that they're being presented, but happen in a much more productive way for all concerned.
And could you explain whether protocols, what are the ordinary conventional protocols in place at universities dealing with protests, and whether those have changed in the last month since we've seen the Gaza protests begin?
I think different universities obviously approach this in different ways, but if you look at the ones that are the most productive, the most functional right now, they really cover a range of outcomes and a range of approaches. Look at University of Chicago, where the president just put out a statement that said, here are the rules of engagement, and that you can stay out on the quad and encamp for certain lengths of time, but here are the guard rules. Anti-harassment rules still apply. You can't threaten people. You can't interrupt the functioning of the university, but you can have an encampment. President of Williams College put out a statement roughly along the same lines. President of Brown was involved in negotiations with students where I think they reached what appears to be a pretty good result. Did the students get everything they wanted? Of course not. And did the university get everything they wanted? Of course not. You know, one of the biggest mistakes here is when you start to think about the students as they as opposed to we. There's only one constituency here, and that's the university. The faculty, the students, the staff, the administration, the trustees, all have to think of themselves as we, working together. As soon as it splinters into they, that's when you start getting problems and sometimes tragedies.
And what about your...
No shit. She was released? I did not. Why did I not hear about that? How did I miss that? Huh. Well, that's good.
response, Professor Lawrence, to what the university professors say, namely, sorry, the university administration say across the board, which is that they're acting in the interests of students, Jewish students on campus, who feel they're being threatened on campus. As the crackdown on the student uprising has intensified, the House now has passed a bill to widen the federal definition of anti-Semitism. Critics of the bill included Jerry Nadler, the most senior Jewish member of Congress and a strong supporter of Israel. Nadler said, quote, "This bill threatens to chill constitutionally protected speech. Speech that is critical of Israel alone does not constitute discrimination. The bill sweeps too broadly," Nadler said. Meanwhile, Republican lawmakers are vowing to launch new investigations into elite universities. Earlier this week, House Republican Whip Tom Emmer claimed, quote, "pro-terrorist anti-Semites taking over our college campuses." So if you could respond to that, what...
Jesus Christ. It is insane. The only terrorism we've seen was when that group of terrorists went and attacked those peaceful protesters at UCLA.
You think is actually going on, and how the Biden administration is responding, what's happened in the House?
The most important thing is to focus on the limits on expression, which are pretty far out on the horizon. Free expression, free inquiry, academic freedom all have to be given broad range for protection. Where there's actual threatening behavior, that can be restricted, that can be precluded. So when you hear about talk of actual threatening behavior, I think there is a reason for the university to clamp down. But provoking people, challenging people, asking difficult questions, making people uncomfortable, that's part of the price of living in a democracy, if you will. That's what it means to live in a self-governing society. Interrupting the actual functioning of the university, that can be precluded. You can't block off buildings. You can't keep students from getting into a library or into a classroom. But you can certainly create an encampment that might make it less comfortable for some students to get to class. Again, discomfort is not something that you should avoid in all cases in a university.
Exactly.
Safety certainly should be provided. So I think that's the balance that universities have to strike. And on some campuses, they have to do a better job of striking that.
100%. Okay. What is next? Okay. This one is last spaced. This is from a day ago, where Manhattan's district attorney says over 250 people were arrested at New York campus protests. I think it's actually 280. My eyes are fucked. Yeah.
So we'll move to Q&A in a moment, but before we do that, just wanted to address briefly events that took place at Columbia University and City College last night. As many of you already know from the NYPD, there were approximately 280 total arrests from these two events. About 170 of those are summonses, and the remaining 100 are either desk appearance tickets or cases that are making their way through the system today and this evening. As my office does in every instance in all of our work, we will look carefully at each individual case on our docket and make decisions based on the facts and the law. That will include a thorough review of body cam footage and interviews with witnesses.
I wonder if any officers will be arrested for assaulting students. Probably none, but, you know, we can be optimistic.
I don't want reality.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now let's look at the one that I first talked about. Al Jazeera, 20 hours ago. Anti-war protesters in U.S. rallies held in New York to support detained students. Those 280 detained students we were just talking about? Well, let's talk about the rallies for them.
They showed up outside Columbia University to support the student protesters detained during the raid on this campus Tuesday evening. They say students need to be heard, not imprisoned.
The students are understandably upset at what's happening in the world, and they have a right and they have the duty as moral individuals to protest.
Police entered Hamilton Hall at the university campus to remove students who had barricaded themselves inside. It's the second time police went into the university in 2 weeks. At least 300 people were detained in Columbia and in the City University of New York. But in spite of the violence, students have returned to the streets.
This is what many campuses, not only in New York City, but across the United States look like, with a very strong police presence. But the students that you can see here say that they won't stop. They say they're the next generation in this country. They're angry because of the war on Gaza. They're angry with the United States foreign policy and its support of Israel. And that's why they want to make their voices heard.
That may be fine to other people, but it's not to me.
New York City Mayor Eric.
Be quiet, Eric. Seriously, we're not even going to listen to him talk. I promise you it's upsetting. Okay, fucking hell. Yeah, I guess we could listen to it, but it's just going to be very frustrating. What he says is complete garbage. Like, all of the violence. I remember what he says. It's full bullshit. Alright, fuck it. Fuck you, Eric. Not gonna listen to you today. We've heard enough from Eric Adams, I think, right? We've heard a lot from that guy. Too much. Where does he stop talking?
Outside.
But this is something the students and the faculty deny.
It was students. It was students at this university. Undergraduate students, graduate students. The outside agitators in this case are the Republicans in Congress, are Mayor Adams, Senator Chuck Schumer. They're the outsiders trying to tell our university how to run its affairs.
Students are trying not to lose momentum in New York City. In Fordham University, students carried out a sit-in on the campus, and again, they were forced out and arrested by the police. But the students don't seem to be afraid. They say they're fighting for a just cause and will continue demanding for the war on Gaza to stop. Teresa Bo, Al Jazeera, New York.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.
Oh, I'm already subscribed. We watch like 6 Al Jazeera videos per stream. I think that's even it might be no, it's probably close. Okay, what is next? Alright, now let's look at some of the footage from Dartmouth before we move on to look at UCLA. As things have continued, and there's definitely more to look at around that situation. This is from 10 hours ago at Dartmouth College. Where's Dartmouth? Is that Massachusetts? I always forget where Dartmouth is. I don't think it is. I think it's like it's New Hampshire. Seems like just about every U.S. state nearly has a campus protest now.
Do not run.
Here's the local militia. Oh wait, no, those are the cops.
Dude! Line formation!
What democracy looks like! This is what democracy looks like!
For fuck's sake. Well, it's good to see that it is continuing to spread, even with the pushback from police and from outside groups. This next video is genuinely disturbing and contains some graphic shit. This is more footage from 2 nights ago at UCLA. Alright, let's fucking watch this.
Hey, Yusuf, you a real man, bro.
Dude is bleeding all over the place. Jesus Christ.
The counter-protesters here at UCLA came with rocks and stones and batteries to throw.
Is something wrong with the audio? What's happening? I feel like it's a good volume. Is something going on?
Came with wooden sticks and pepper spray to crush our spirits. But our spirits will not be crushed. Yes. They tried to take a barricade from us, and when I held on, they pulled me into a circle of them, and they started beating me on the back. They threw a rock at my eye. They threw a hammer at my leg. And they slashed my arm, and then they pepper sprayed me in the eyes.
Jesus fucking Christ. Police were accused of failing to act quickly enough. No shit. No shit. Fact is, the other side did not come armed, but these people did. It is a completely unfair fight to begin with, right? People who are being peaceful, and then they're just being attacked violently. That's the sort of stuff police are supposed to be dealing with, not shutting down free speech. Campus security staff were also filmed watching the attack. Universities have accused Gaza protesters of creating a threatening atmosphere, but in Los Angeles it was the anti-war protesters who started a violent attack. Or wait, no, who faced a violent attack. Sorry, I did not read that right. It's my bad. But yeah, those the anti-war protesters who got fucking slammed by all sorts of shit, attacked with fireworks and explosives, and once the those violent protesters were moved out of the way by the police, none of them were arrested, from what I understand. Then the police moved in. And this is video from yesterday. And by yesterday, I mean May 2nd, early in the morning. Okay, y'all are just having fun together, and I appreciate that. You do what you gotta do to get through this situation, because this video is also distressing to watch.
I'm a student here. I'm an English major. Please don't fail us.
In a place like UCLA, where they tell you this is a place to have a free exchange of ideas and to, you know, learn about the world, yet when you stand up for Gaza, this is what happened.
30,000 plus people dead in Gaza, and more dying every day, and the vast majority of them are women and children, and that's intolerable.
We consider it a successful, incident. We didn't see no injuries on both ends. Our officers were able to remove the agitators. We're still working on a few agitators that are still on campus. However, we are making progress.
Jesus.
I think it's completely illegitimate that in the so-called land of the free, students come out and they protest against their crimes, the crimes of their government, and they get repressed, you know? It's very inspiring to see that the students are not backing down, that they are, I mean, they're putting a lot on the line. They're risking arrest, they're risking their careers and their futures to actually send this message. And it's very important and it's very inspiring. And it's outrageous that first the LAPD was sent in and then the CHP, and that now they're moving in with all this less lethal, weapons for peaceful protesters, and so this is illegitimate. It is, one side is right, which is the students, and one side is wrong, which is the suppression of this speech, which is the attacks on the pro-Palestinian voices, and they must be supported. And this kind of protest needs to spread and into all parts of society.
Explosive fire sticks, I think, that are designed just to strike fear. It doesn't seem like they're hitting anybody, but they're extraordinarily loud and extraordinarily bright, and they were using that to basically push all of the supporters for the encampment to a different part of campus. So I don't know why they needed to do that, but I noticed that they arrested quite a few students while they're doing it. They seem pretty liberal with their forked batons and their big shields.
So,
for fuck's sake, I don't even want to hear what this guy has to say. But it's bullshit, because he's basically claiming that the students who are peacefully protesting are agitators in this little statement of his. I don't think it's necessary for us to even hear it. Just so frustrating the way that they're dealing with all of this. This wouldn't be happening if colleges were essentially actively suppressing this shit themselves, calling the cops in to suppress the peaceful protesters. There's been so little concern for the safety of the people using their free speech rights in a way that we all are supposed to support, supposedly, but it's just living in this fucking twilight zone right now. Alright, there is more for us to look at here. Which one was this? Okay, this is from Democracy Now! From 12 hours ago. Entitled, quote-unquote, "People Could Have Died."
As we broadcast this morning, Los Angeles police and riot gear are dismantling a pro-Palestinian encampment on UCLA. Hundreds of police used flashbang grenades, rubber bullets, and tear gas in a face-off with protesters who chanted, "We're not leaving, you don't scare us." The police raid at UCLA came a day after pro-Israel counter-protesters attacked the encampment with fireworks, metal rods, and tear gas for hours late Tuesday night and into early Wednesday morning. At least 15 people were injured. This is how UCLA's student newspaper, the Daily
I cannot
Bruin,
believe UCLA
described
allowed
the
this to
violence
happen for so
instigated
long.
by counter-protesters in an editorial.
And the cops.
Quote, "It began with
They're both-
ear-piercing
supposedly they
screams
also
of
got
wailing
calls from
babies
people.
loudly emitting from speakers, counter-protesters tearing down the barricades, laser pointers flashing into the encampment, people in masks waving strobe lights, tear gas, pepper spray, violent beatings. Fireworks sparked at the border of the encampment, raining down on tents and the individuals inside," the Daily Bruin wrote. The editorial noted Los Angeles police did not arrive until slightly after 1 a.m. Meanwhile, around 3:30 a.m. Wednesday morning, 4 UCLA student journalists were attacked by the pro-Israel counter-protesters on campus. One of the journalists was treated for injuries at the hospital and has since been released. There were no arrests after Tuesday night's attack. Wednesday's classes were cancelled. The Daily Bruin's editorial ended with a question, quote, "Will someone have to die on our campus tonight for you to intervene, Jean Block? The blood would be on your hands."
University of California President Michael Drake and the UCLA Chancellor Jean Block have launched an investigation into what California Governor Gavin Newsom condemned as the, quote, "limited and delayed campus law enforcement response," unquote. Meanwhile, the campus police union issued a statement that, quote, "the decisions regarding the response of the UC police rest firmly in the hands of campus leadership." For more, we're joined by 3 guests. Shanth Kodialam Nanganeri is a senior staff writer for the Daily Bruin, UCLA's student newspaper. They are one of the 4 reporters who were attacked. Mel Boer is a staff reporter for the...
I cannot believe this is the conversation that we're having right now. It's fucking crazy. Good job with the Jessica Fletcher, by the way. 30 likes. Really good job. Hold on. Let me try and fix this. Oh shit. I'm gonna fix it. I swear. But the software is acting up, of course. As we've hit the 3-hour mark, it's decided to stop working for whatever amazing reason it has. I'll get it done. I'll fix it.
Real News Network. She was at the Gaza Solidarity encampment Tuesday night when counter-protesters violently attacked it for several hours. And Gay Teresa Johnson is an associate professor of African-American Studies and Chicano Studies at the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA. She writes and teaches on race and racism, cultural history, spatial politics, and political economy, a member of the UCLA's chapter of Faculty for Justice in Palestine, which has called on UCLA faculty to refuse university labor today, the day after May Day, quote, "in protest of the university administration egregious failure to protect the student protest encampment from attacks by self-professed and proudly Zionist mobs coming to campus every night to enact violence," unquote. Welcome to all of you. We want to begin with Dr. Gay Teresa Johnson. Before we get into the horrifying details of the attack on the Gaza encampment, if you can explain why you're withholding work today and the overall context of how UCLA is dealing with this protest encampment and why the issue, so often not talked about in the corporate media, of why the Gaza encampment exists.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on.
By the way, chat, this is going to be one of the interviews where I'm going to struggle to pause this, most likely, just because I feel like this is a good time for me to to relay that information to you, mostly due to the fact that, you know, what these people have to say is incredibly important. The whole fucking interview is honestly just super necessary. I don't know if we're going to watch the whole thing right now, but it is really fuck it, just
So inspired by our students today. We are refusing our labor to the University of California at Los Angeles because we know that the conditions under which that they were arrested, the conditions upon the conditions that they were subjected to night before last with the counter-protesters, the violence that they have endured night after night after night, the complaints that they have lodged and that have been ignored by the university administration, all of the ways in which they were failed by the university administration, those are also our work conditions. And until our students are supported, we will also be stopping work. The necessity for the camp was, what is going on in Gaza, what is happening here in the United States is linked, and these students.
I just want to say, this is this is a great example of what we were talking about just a little while ago in regards to the May Day protests, right? The workers' protests that were in solidarity with the Palestinians as well. It's sort of a parallel situation, I would say. And
done so much study.
It's just really good to see,
and
right?
who have done so much organizing are clear about the connections between U.S. racism and international imperialism, and they are so clear about their role and purpose in this movement. So many of them have now been politicized, and this will not stop just because of tonight.
So, Shant, if you could explain, you were one of 4 journalists who was attacked. Tell us what happened.
Walking back from that protest where a group of pro-Israel counter-protesters had stormed and seized upon the encampment campus at Dixon Plaza and Powell Library, and me and 3 other journalists.
If you could speak as loud as you possibly can, we're hearing it, and come closer, yes, to your computer. And also, you're describing what happened. Tell us what night, about what time it was, you with your 4 Daily Bruin, the 3 other Daily Bruin reporters.
Yeah, it was about, I want to say 2 or 3 a.m. It was really late. We had all spent hours being out there on the field, reporting, sending messages to our editors, really scared about the scenes that we were seeing on campus towards the protesters in the encampment, the level of violence and vitriol that was in the air. We had documented reporters hearing things like racial epithets. I personally witnessed a counter-protester slam a wooden slab onto an individual who had her hands on the barricade of the encampment, and smashing her fingers, and listening to her scream and watching how that changed the environment. And many more harrowing scenes have been discussed by students on this campus.
Who were these people?
Yeah, we have been trying our best to be accurate about that, and I think in a Los Angeles Times article, my colleague talks about being attacked by one of these pro-Israel counter-protesters and how they have known who we are on campus, and they know that we report on these issues, and sometimes they know who our face is, and when we're leaving and we're vulnerable and we're in a small group, we were encircled and attacked, and they started shining lights in our face, spraying us with very strong irritants, circling in particular one of my colleagues and physically harassing and assaulting her. And by the time I had finally made...
It's just so disgusting, right? The fact that journalists are being targeted on campuses by, you know, unhinged counter-fucking protesters, right? Like, they should not be worried about randoms attacking them on campus. They shouldn't be worried about police attacking them on campus. And both of those things are happening. It's insane.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
And thankfully this individual here is, you know, he's okay and safe, seemingly. Still managed to cover this protest, which is clearly in dire need, especially seeing the way that it's being framed by the mainstream media that was there. It's just more needed than ever.
To help get 3 of us out of there, we found one of us had turned back, and by the time we had looked back around. They were on the ground being violently assaulted, and we were trying our best as we ran back screaming their name to pull them out of that fight, pull them out of the ground, pull people off of them, and we were begging while they were flashing.
And this was Catherine Hamilton, who was hospitalized?
Yes, she was.
How are they beating her?
Jesus Christ.
You know, it was a very, very quick scene. I know she got hurt in the stomach, and I know that additionally we had so much tear gas in our eyes already from the protests that by the end of it, it was just hard to walk back. It was hard to make it back.
And Shant, could you explain? I know that you said people are being careful about trying to talk about who the counter-protesters are, but could you tell us what you know? Were most of them not students? Were they students? If you could explain what you know.
Yeah, I mean, we do see students on, you know, rallies supporting pro-Israel groups. We have a pro-Israel group, the Jewish, for Jewish faculty, and they themselves have actually distanced themselves from this behavior. But we do see a lot of non-UCLA students coming onto campus and sparking a lot of these controversies that end up going viral online, on social media, and that do require deep, thorough reporting that goes beyond the kind of outrage bait that unfortunately fuels a lot of the conversations.
Where were the police? Where was security as this attack went on?
Great question, Amy.
They were nowhere to be found. We actually walked up to a few campus security afterwards asking for help, as one of my peers was crying and having a breakdown, and I was trying to help the other two as well. And they were not able to help us with anything. They didn't know what to do. And in fact, we had documented that campus security, when faced with threats, these are private security guards handled by the campus before the actual police had even come on campus, they would run away when they, or hide in buildings and deny reporters access to those buildings when they were afraid of what they saw on the scene and on the site when it got too violent.
And Mel, you were there reporting on what happened. Could you describe where you were and what you witnessed?
Yeah, so myself and another reporter showed up around 10 p.m. We found ourselves on a side barricade next to Royce Hall, and we had a pretty good vantage point of the two sets of barricades that were separated by a sidewalk prior to the confrontation happening. Around 10:30 or 10:45, there was some sort of altercation, some sort of argument between the private security and the pro-Israel counter-protesters, and they very quickly dismantled the barricades and began ripping flags down from the Gaza encampment, pulling barricades apart, trying to rip apart the wooden barricades behind the metal ones that were installed there. And that continued for about 3-4 hours. It was a chaos. Very scary, very quickly.
I mean, it's fascinating that the corporate media is describing this as just clashes between two different groups, the pro-Palestine groups and the pro-Israel.
We were talking about that yesterday when we were talking about this, that every single one of them described them as clashes, when every time it was the exact opposite of the actual definition of a clash. Every time it was an attack by a violent group on a peaceful group, and that's counterintuitive or antithetical to the idea of what a clash is supposed to be.
Groups. Mel, from your perspective, you're a reporter with the Real News Network. What we're hearing here is an assault by one group on the encampment.
Right. You know, I've been to the UCLA encampment on the first day when they were setting up. And from the jump, there have been individuals who have tried to agitate these demonstrators, these students. They've tried to get a rise out of them. They've tried to provoke some sort of violent reaction. And, you know, to their serious credit, these disciplined students have spent a lot of time and energy and effort not responding to that, or trying to de-escalate situations, trying to keep each other safe, trying to keep the integrity of the encampment safe, because the point is not to get into an argument with counter-protesters, right? The point is to continue to pressure UCLA to divest from the various relationships that they have with Israel. and to boycott these programs that are funding an occupation and a genocide.
Exactly. The counter protesters are really, and the fact is the media is helping them do it, right? Helping them to shift the narrative and make protesters appear to be violent once again when they're not, and it's ridiculous. All right, there's a little bit more of this I want to watch, but I'm gonna try and cut out at least a tiny bit of this. Mostly just because we're running low on time. There's still more to do.
Describe what you know is happening right now on campus at UCLA, and what the response of the administration has been to the encampment since it went up.
Well, it's Jessica.
This is something that so many of us feel disgusted by. Many of the faculty who I spoke to as late as just about 45 minutes ago were feeling shocked. They were feeling so disillusioned by the response of the university. This is a university administration that has, for weeks, for months, equivocated the experience of people who are proclaimed Zionists to those Muslim students who have been doxxed and harassed every day, and faculty as well. And so this is a situation in which students have been subjected by the university to a complete negation of their experience, not only here at UCLA, but across the world. The idea that there are, as Amy said earlier, clashes between protesters, or that there are fights that are breaking out between these two people. We're talking about a nonviolent protest. We're talking about students who have been organizing for months, who are trained, have taken it upon themselves to educate themselves on tactics of nonviolence, and the incredible and brave way in which they defended themselves all of these nights, but of course in the culminating violence of night before last, and then of course of the violence of this night as well, as they've been gassed, the flashbangs that have been set off by the LAPD, and it's just been incredible the way that they have responded in the face of the gaslighting that the university has done
100%.
Against them. They have just done such an incredible and brave job, and many of us, while we are shocked, we are also understanding as faculty that thousands and thousands of students across the nation, across the world, have been politicized today, and there is no way, just because the LAPD and the UCLA at UCLA have mandated the dispersal of these students, that this is the end. It is only the beginning, because there are so many people now who understand that this is a movement, and it cannot be unseen, it cannot be put back in the box.
And finally...
Oh, wait. I think we have to listen to this one, too. We're just listening basically to this whole goddamn Democracy Now! Piece right now. Not gonna lie. It's the only one we're doing today like that's long like this, but just feels fucking necessary. Having these three perspectives here for this is just...
where do negotiations stand? Has the administration been speaking with students about their demands that UCLA divest from Israel?
The other day, the university offered the students 3 options. One was negotiations, which we saw yesterday. There was no negotiation. There was an offer of absolutely nothing. Students had demands that were completely ignored, that wasn't even in the discussion once administrators came to the camp. They were offered absolutely nothing. The second option was to continue in a sort of long-term action with encampment, but it wasn't a real legitimate choice that the university was giving these students, because they were going to make them adhere to policies that they call time, place, and manner that would have evicted them from the encampment and forced them into other places that would have been completely ineffective as far as protest and visibility. And the third action that administrators, third choice that they gave students was police action. And they said, you know, if you don't take the first 2, which were in effect completely false, then we will assume that you want police action. And in the end, they didn't care. They didn't ask what students wanted yesterday. They just simply went into what was already scheduled, what was already planned, which, one, I will say, many of us think that it's almost as if, like we've seen this many times over history, in Katrina, for example, in New Orleans, where politicians said, let the hurricane do for New Orleans what we couldn't do. This was the same thing that was echoing for us as we watched these counter-protesters so violently attack our students, is we'll just sit back and let that happen instead. And the irony of these counter-protesters attacking these vulnerable students who are also incredibly strong and brave and organized in an enclosed space, the analogy that we can make to what's happening in Gaza is obviously lost on all of these counter-protesters. They have no regard for the lives, just as the UCLA administration, people could have died the night before last and this night as well. And these are the conditions under which students are trying to enact free speech.
God.
Okay, Teresa Johnson, want to thank you.
It's just so fucked, right? And she says it all so well. They all really got to the heart of it, from what I can tell. And it's just the analogy of what's happening, right? People who are, you know, stuck in a small confined space, being rained down on by an angry mob that just doesn't want them to have their human rights. And it's you know, it's too on point with what's happening in Gaza in a very microcosmic kind of way. And it just for fuck's sake.
Being with us, UCLA Professor of African American Studies and Chicano Studies. We also want to thank Mel Buer of the Real News Network and Shanth Kodialam Nanguneri. Shanth is one of 4 reporters, a senior reporter with the Daily Bruin, the UCLA paper, who was attacked by the counter-protesters.
Okay, now let's watch this very, very short video from Al Jazeera from 13 hours ago. After, this was early in the morning, after the police had completely cleared out the anti-war encampment. Let's just listen to what he has to say.
Is this the end of the protest?
No, not at all.
Will you be back?
I'm not saying I'm gonna be back, but there will be people be back. People will be back. It's not the end. It's not gonna be the end. Until the genocide ends and the funding for the genocide ends. The billions of dollars spent.
What would you say to UCLA after all of this?
It's disappointing. Very disappointing.
Gentlemen,
no comment.
Okay, we're being asked to move by the sheriff's department. Yep.
And just gonna go back to this so you can see this cop is telling him to go away and stop interviewing, doing journalism while they're trying to arrest free speech. Just literally just trying to arrest an idea.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Okay. Yeah, this one. Let's listen to this from 11 hours ago. Joe Biden made a statement regarding his thoughts on campus protests. Let's listen to this.
We've all seen images, and they put to the test 2 fundamental American principles. Excuse me. The first is the right to free speech and for people to peacefully assemble and make their voices heard. The second is the rule of law. Both must be upheld. We are not an authoritarian nation where we silence people or squash dissent. The American people are heard. And
we're not, because it's happening right now. What are you doing to stop it?
Peaceful protest is in the best tradition of how Americans respond to consequential issues. But neither are we a lawless country. We are a civil society, and order must prevail. Throughout our history, we've often faced moments.
Order must prevail? Does that include for the people who committed terrorism on peaceful protesters? Will those people face justice? I don't think there was a single arrest of counter-protesters. Or were they not violating the law by assaulting people?
This because we are a big, diverse, free-thinking, and freedom-loving nation. In moments like this, there are always those who rush in to score political points. But this isn't a moment for politics. It's a moment for clarity. So let me be clear. Peaceful protest in America. Violent protest is not protected. Peaceful protest is. It's against the law when violence occurs. Destroying property is not a peaceful protest.
It just doesn't feel like he's actually making the distinction, even though he's saying the words. I'd like to believe that that's real, but where's the action? I'm not going to believe it till I see action on this one. That's a fact. Protect the free speech. Protect it. Please, do it. I'd love to see it. And protect the people doing free speech. How about that? Okay, let's move on to this. Quickly looking at a couple of different protests that have been going on in Canada. First, this is from a day ago. A Quebec court has rejected an injunction request against the McGill encampment.
We just heard that the injunction was denied!
The encampment stays.
Ecstatic. Ecstatic. I haven't felt this good in years, maybe.
Protesters here feeling empowered by the ruling issued by a Quebec judge. On Tuesday, 2 students filed an injunction asking the encampment to be cleared. But Superior Court Justice Chantal Masse ruled that they failed to demonstrate that protesters were blocking them from going to school.
Because it is completely peaceful, and I believe the judge saw that as well.
The judge acknowledged, though, that some of the slogans and statements in the encampment are troubling. A Jewish rights organization posting this video from the encampment on social media, denouncing the chant as supportive of a terrorist group in Yemen. The judge encouraged protesters to choose their words carefully.
We have community guidelines that actively denounce anti-Semitism, denounce homophobia, denounce racism. This community is not the problem.
One side's victory means another's loss, although the lawyer representing the students doesn't see it that way. Neil Oberman believes the encounter.
Hey, I'm not ignoring your pleas for Jessica. It's stuck. My stream software is stuck. And so it's stuck on the old... So the fact is, so this happens all the time. So we get stuck all the time. And so I have I have copies of each scene, so that if it gets stuck on one, I can go to the other. But if it is stuck on the other one, I can't fuck with the one that I'm currently on. Right? It's complicated to explain, but essentially, like, I'm selected. Like it's lagging so bad that it takes like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, sometimes longer, for it to respond to the scene switch. And so I'm just stuck waiting for it to move again so I can fix it. It's making me sad, and I'm sorry.
Shouldn't be looked as an isolated event, but as the culmination of a series of disturbing incidents.
Look what happened in February, in March, and in April. Die-ins, blocking the Bronfman building, blocking classes, using aggression to bully people not to go into class. Isn't that a classic example of aggression?
He condemns the university's attitude.
McGill has acted like Switzerland, sitting on...
Oh my god. Alright, we're done with this one. But yeah. Like, it's honestly, it's great news that Quebec has decided to rule against that injunction. It's ridiculous. Now, should people be barring people from going to class? Probably not, right? But should they be doing free speech? 115%. And that is the distinction that the judges saw, and I agree with it. Makes perfect sense. Allow people to continue speaking out against atrocities happening that were funded by the country that they're in, Canada. And it's not just America who's been giving Israel weapons, I'd point out. Although I think we did a story where, or at least we looked at a story where I think Canada has stopped sending weapons. I can't remember. Hold on, let me look this up. Did Canada stop sending weapons to Israel? So technically, yes, but it doesn't apply to permits that were already approved. So it's functionally a no. For now, I guess. Which is the important time, I would point out. Okay, now let's look at a encampment that is now at the University of Toronto. How is genocide a dividing issue?
Well, this major field at UFT was blocked off.
I'd point out, this seems fucked up to say. I would point out genocide is maybe the most divisive of all issues. Literally. Do you get what I'm saying? It's in a fucked up sort of sarcastic sense, but you get it? Like, because, well, alright, I'm not going to explain this joke. It's a terrible joke. Cut that.
Well, this major field at UFT was blocked off to students starting over the weekend. The administration had put up some fencing. Well, students had stormed down that fencing early this morning at about 4 a.m. Take a look at it now. A bunch of encampments, dozens of tents set up. Students now occupying this portion of UFT campus. This is called King's College Circle. I'm told at about 4 a.m. students stormed down the fencing and put up tents for a peaceful demonstration. About 150 students and faculty here and more coming as the day goes on. Now, there's students monitoring the entrance of the encampment, only letting UFT students and faculty onto the grounds, making sure everyone's values are aligned, trying to avoid any strangers from coming in and avoiding any escalation during this process. Now, we also hear that faculty is here supporting students. Here's more.
There's a lot of faculty here. We wanted to make sure our students were safe, our students were heard, and just be presence and witness for the students in this action. But of course, we also support our students and their demands. And as a Jewish faculty member, I felt it was really important to be here. I'm here with a lot of other Jewish faculty and a lot of Jewish students. We're here because we support absolutely the demands of the occupation, and we support Palestinian liberation and freedom.
We're still waiting for UFT to get back to us with a comment, but lots of security is around, just making sure this protest, this demonstration is remaining peaceful. Students say that they plan on being here for as long as it takes. They want their voices heard. They want the university to divest and cut ties with certain Israeli companies, and of course they say they want Palestine to be free. Meantime, MPP Sarah Jama, who's been very active in pro-Palestinian relations.
This is the most peaceful scene I've ever seen. It looks literally serene at this protest. It's amazing, you know, and I do hope that they manage to stay safe. It's great to see teachers there being witnesses and being supportive of these protests. It's just nice to see that it's, you know, kind of taking on this sort of, I guess, viral quality, if you will, spreading from campus to campus around the world right now. I mean that obviously in the best way possible. It just really is, it's good to see. And I do hope that eventually this all starts making a difference. Because it's been going on now for, I don't even, how long is, what was the first one that started? I'm trying to even think now. It's been weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. I know that. I can't even remember when the first one, I want to look it up. Anyway, let's move on. Kind of. This is from 7 hours ago from the Associated Press, where UN Chief Anthony Guterres called for free press freedom safeguards. That is Anthony Guterres, right? I think so.
Around the world, media workers are risking their lives trying to bring us news on everything from war to democracy. I'm shocked and appalled by the high number of journalists killed in Israeli military operations in Gaza. The United Nations recognizes the invaluable work of journalists and media professionals to ensure that the public is informed and engaged. Without facts, we cannot fight mis and disinformation. Without accountability, we will not have strong policies in place. Without press freedom, we won't have any freedom. A free press is not a choice, but a necessity. Our World Press Freedom Day is very important. And so I call on governments, the private sector, and civil society to join us in reaffirming our commitment to safeguarding press freedom and the rights of journalists and media professionals around the world.
Seriously, all of our leaders need to hear that. It applies in so many fucking places. More relevant than ever. And yet, our journalistic institutions are in serious, dire straits. They've turned mostly to editorial, at least the big ones have, seemingly, in many regards, rather than just reporting on stuff. And then you look at the crackdown on independent media, you see it at protests all the time, getting arrested, attacked, and it's problematic. Then if you start looking at places like Gaza, where essentially no journalists are allowed, aside from Al Jazeera, it's, you know, we could go on and on this one. Okay, let's look at part of this. This is from a day ago from PBS NewsHour. We will not be watching this whole thing. News wrap. Blinken says, time is now for a Gaza ceasefire. No kidding, pal. It's been now.
Amid the campus unrest in the U.S., Secretary of State Antony Blinken spent this day in Israel, insisting the time is now for a ceasefire. He spoke with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Jerusalem and visited an aid crossing into Gaza. Later, he said Israel has offered key compromises for a ceasefire, and he pressed Hamas to say yes.
If we already saw this part of it, so we're going to skip past this bullshit. But it is interesting to actually see him going to a border crossing for aid. It does imply a certain vibe that I'm fully on board with. Granted, I still think it's weird that he's focusing on pressuring Hamas into a deal when Israel's been offered like multiple deals already that they've turned down. Hopefully that was something he said when he was meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu. I have very much skepticism about that, but fuck it, let's just finish this video.
In turn, the Prime Minister's office insisted that Israel still means to assault the city of Rafah to finish off Hamas. But Blinken said the U.S. has not received any Israeli plan for attacking Rafah in southern Gaza that accounts for the safety of civilians. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians are sheltering in Rafah amid airstrikes that killed 2 more children overnight, and despite fears of an Israeli ground offensive.
Whoopsies. Why is that happening? Go back. Stop that.
Palestinians are sheltering in Rafah amid airstrikes that killed 2 more children overnight, and despite fears of an Israeli ground offensive.
We are afraid at any moment that there will be an invasion of Rafah. And even if the invasion happens, we do not know where to go. There is no safe place left. God willing, there will be a truce.
Palestinian officials say the war in Gaza has killed more than 34,500 people to date, and Hamas
Okay. By the way, if you got that, he was about to tell us what happened on October 7th, just in case we were unaware of that from 6 months ago, 7 months ago now. Just gotta say it. Gotta condemn October 7th, beginning of history. For fuck's sake. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna skip the last 5 minutes of that. And move on to this from Al Jazeera, where Hamas chief Hania discusses Gaza truce talks with Egypt and Qatar officials.
Now, Hamas says it's studying the latest proposal for a ceasefire in a positive manner. A delegation is returning to Egypt to discuss the deal with mediators. Now, Israel wants the return of captives held in Gaza in return for a temporary truce, but Hamas has repeatedly insisted on a permanent end to the war. Let's get more on this from our correspondent in occupied East Jerusalem, Stephanie Decker, who's standing by for us. So, really in a bit of a holding pattern, Steph, in terms of these negotiations.
Yes, waiting for the response of Hamas. That's where we are at. It was supposed to come Wednesday night, then it was supposed to come tonight, and now, according to Israeli media, that could be in the next couple of days. I think if we read between the lines of the words of Ismail Haniyeh, Hamas's political leader, who spoke to the head of intelligence, Egypt's head of intelligence, also to Qatar's leadership, where he talked about working on maturing an agreement. That is the translation that would bring an end to the hostilities against its people. So perhaps, and we do know that Hamas has been seeking clarification over the last couple of days about specific points in this agreement, in this potential deal. Perhaps they have amendments. We don't know. There's a lot of speculation going on in the media on all sides. What's going to happen, whether Rafah will happen or not, because that's what the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has been saying very publicly. Deal or no deal, Rafah will happen. Diplomats behind the scenes will tell you if there is a deal, there will be no Rafah. And I think interestingly, Anthony Blinken was pushed on this because this is what the Israeli Prime Minister was saying when he was here. And
you know, it's my thinking that Netanyahu made that statement directly after the deal was released in order to make it so that the deal would not be accepted. Right? Because the fact is, he said deal or no deal, there will be a Rafah invasion. And it's fucking insane. That is the talk of a man who is in no way interested in peace, in no way interested in rescuing hostages, and in no way ending a genocide that he's currently orchestrating.
we know the Americans don't want Rafah to happen. They want a deal. And Anthony Blinken said, well, people say a lot of things. We have to look at what is being done and at what we're doing. So the mission is still to try and get a ceasefire. And as you mentioned, a holding pattern at this point in time. We're going to have to wait and see until we hear from Hamas. And then we'll know the path forward. Currently, the Israeli War Cabinet is meeting.
What's the point of a deal then? Well, they're gonna, from what I can tell, they're gonna have to amend the deal and say it's specifically no invasion of Rafah, right? Or else something bad happens, right? I don't know what the necessary guidelines of that would be exactly, but I I feel like sanctions should be on the table. I don't, you know, at the very least. I mean, there should already be sanctions. Let's be real. Let's be fucking real. Okay, this next one is pretty upsetting. This is from 10 hours ago. At least one driver killed and several people injured in attack on aid trucks in Gaza City. You're gonna fire pizza up into the space station with a cannon? Awesome.
Now, at least one driver has been killed when the Israeli army opened fire at aid trucks at the Kuwaiti roundabout in Gaza City. And that's the intersection on the main road linking North and South Gaza. Let's get more on this from Hani Mahmoud, who joins us now from Rafah in southern Gaza. So, Hani, what happened during this convoy of trucks and how come one driver is dead?
Oh my God, it is so hard to see this guy. Like, I don't know if you feel the same way, but I'll explain in a second. But like, seeing this guy makes me depressed. Okay, at this point, every time I see this guy now, I get a little bit more, like a little bit more sad inside and out loud. But Jesus Christ, I swear, this guy's aged like 15 or 20 years since the first story that I saw him do, like 6 months ago or something. He's been standing in the same fucking spot for 6 months, reporting on this goddamn tragedy that's happening right now, that's being committed by the IOF, and it's just so it's so hard to watch somebody go through something like this in this way, where it just, like, I feel like you can see this guy getting sapped of all of his like energy and life force just a teeny bit each time that he has to tell us about another person that's dead, another fucking bombing that happened, another whatever, and it's genuinely tragic as fuck. Because the fact is, we've seen this. I don't know. I keep forgetting his name, and I really need to write it down somewhere. But the fact is, like, we've seen him like countless times. Countless times. He has done so many reports. The only thing about it that makes me happy is just to know that he's still alive. You know, that's it. Knock on wood. Thankfully, we have a wood desk in space.
Yes, well, this is not the first time we're seeing these deliberate attacks on aid trucks or aid seekers or humanitarian aid workers on the ground. And just to give a little bit of context, this Kuwaiti traffic circle is controlled by the Israeli military. There is a heavy presence of Israeli tanks, armored vehicles. There are ground forces at the vicinity of the area. And normally what we're seeing right now, trucks that are allowed into the northern part in Gaza City had to get a...
It's fucking insane that every time we hear a report from this guy, you can every time hear the sounds of drones going overhead.
Coordination and permit from the Israeli military at the traffic circle itself. Now, what happened as soon as these group of trucks were approaching the Kuwaiti traffic circle, where heavy gunfire that was open on the trucks. One driver was reported killed right away. There are several other injuries who were at the site of the gunshot and the gunfire for at least a couple hours before paramedics and civil defense crew were allowed to get into the area. This area has been drawn by the Israeli military as a combat zone, and we've seen in the past many of the convoy trucks were shot at directly. Many of the aid seekers who were approaching the area to get aid supplies, food, water, other survival items were killed at that particular area, the Kuwaiti traffic circle. The injuries and the person that was pronounced it were all transferred to Al Ahli Baptist Hospital. That's at Gaza Square in the center part of Gaza City. A reminder, this is not the first time it happened repeatedly. Just last week, one aid worker coordinating the Belgium Agency for Development humanitarian aid in Gaza was killed in the house he was sheltering in, along with other people inside the house itself.
And just to let our viewers know that the buzzing...
I don't know how they live with it. don't know how they live with drones constantly going overhead. Just listening to it gives me freaking, like, panics. Like, am I about to watch this guy get fucking murdered by the IDF? Like, what in the fuck? It is such a crazy existence. This nonsense just needs to end. Israel needs to just be stopped. It's gone too far.
That they can hear above you as you're talking to me, Hani, is not your microphone. It's the ongoing Israeli drones which monitor the area and decide when and help the Israeli military target those that they might want to hurt in the Gaza Strip. But let's just move on to other trucks that have been able to enter the Gaza Strip today from crossings that...
Well, I'm glad to hear it's not just me that it affects. It's other people as well. Yeah, it really affects my anxiety. Just listening to that. I'm just glad he's alive. But the fact is that story is fucking tragic and horrific, right? Like, what in the fuck? How many times are aid workers going to be killed in one way or another, right? You know, it's why do they not have to answer for this the same way they have to answer for the WCK? I mean, I think a lot of us know why, but the fact is it's completely fucked and it's racist, and we we should be aware of that fact at all times. That, you know, WCK, there were what, 5? Was it 9? I can't even remember now. There was less than 10 WCK aid workers killed in an attack months ago now. However, there have been multiple massacres on aid workers in Gaza, but they have not been treated in nearly the same way with comparable outrage. It's laughable to even try to compare the differences in the way that some of this has been covered. You know, start with UNRWA and then just go down the fucking list. I would like to see the Western media get upset about this, because that was Al Jazeera. They're the only ones who covered this, from what I could see. All right, let's look at these two stories here. I might actually only need to watch the first one. This is from 9 hours ago, from Al Jazeera. Are Israeli officials under threat of ICC prosecution? This is the take.
Al Jazeera Podcasts.
Today, behind an Israeli warning that international prosecution may be looming,
Israeli officials fear the International Criminal Court may issue arrest warrants for senior members of government, and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu may be on the list.
So what would legal action mean for Israel? I'm Malika Bilal, and this is The Take. Al Jazeera.
So I know that
Salhout is on the ground in...
Wait, let me pause this. So I know that I have expressed skepticism about this in the past, and I certainly don't, I don't blame anybody for being skeptical about what the ICC may be capable of doing in this scenario, but I do think that this podcast, in a pretty short period of time, kind of unfolds some of this in a way that I haven't heard put yet in quite this way. So let's just listen to at least part of this here.
She's been following these recent warnings, suggesting that International Criminal Court arrest warrants might be in the works for some of Israel's most senior leaders.
Israeli officials have been speaking about this at length, including Israel's Foreign Minister Israel Katz and the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
No ICC action will impact Israel's ironclad determination to achieve the goals of our war with Hamas terrorists. We will destroy Hamas's military and governing capabilities in Gaza. We will release all our hostages, and we will ensure that Gaza never poses a threat to Israel again.
Now, the Israeli Prime Minister has said that this would, quote, be an outrage of historical proportions, saying that the International Court is trying to put Israel on the dock as Israel continues its war on Gaza.
We reached out to an international law expert to help us learn more about ICC prosecution and its impact on Israel.
Hi, I'm Mark Kirsten. I'm an assistant professor of criminology and criminal justice at the University of the Fraser Valley. My work focuses on human rights law and the prosecution of international crimes, so war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide.
Which is why we have you here. So talk to me about what that looks like for you when you get a breaking news alert on your phone and it says something like Israeli officials warn of potential.
Because I want us to be able to listen to more of this than less, I'm going to speed this up just slightly.
Warrants.
It's about time. You know, I'm not new to this game. I've been working in this field and studying this field for a long time. Israel and Palestine isn't the only situation where people like me, and in particular, victims and survivors and advocates, are a little bit impatient for something to finally happen on the justice and accountability front. I'm one of those people who believes that this conflict continues to happen because there's such a mass and...
I can't stand listening to it on these headphones like this, though. This pisses me off. Fuck. Why do these studio headphones have to be so annoying? You have to hear everything, don't you?
Denial of accountability and a production of shame constantly against civilians on all sides of this conflict. For me, it's about time. And when people like, you know, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu are worried, I think we're doing the right thing.
So we know that the ICC has been investigating possible crimes in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank since 2021. And we now know that Israeli officials are concerned. But to understand why that matters, we have to start with who is and who isn't in the ICC.
Palestine is a member of the ICC.
Israel is not and doesn't recognize the court's jurisdiction. So what difference does this make?
Yeah, such an important question. And I know that sometimes it can get kind of lost in legal mumbo jumbo, but I think there is a relatively simple way to understand this. So first of all, for the purposes of the International Criminal Court, it doesn't really matter how many states recognize Palestinian statehood. We know now that across the world, 142 do. And then there's those that don't, primarily Europe, the country that I'm in right now, Canada, the United States. But for the International Criminal Court, all that really matters is that the ICC itself recognizes that Palestine is a state for the purposes of the International Criminal Court, which, as you rightly mentioned, means it can investigate on the territory that is Palestine. Now,
okay, so that's one of the important points of this, okay? So while Israel and the United States and countries like Russia may not sign on to the ICC, Palestine is recognized by the ICC as a state and is part of the ICC, which means that it gives the International Criminal Court jurisdiction to be able to do this investigation, essentially.
You also noted that the ICC's been investigating since 2021. It opened its investigation in 2019, but what it had to do then, the prosecutor at the time, is basically figure out what is Palestine, right? Because there's been questions for decades as to what exactly Palestine is. Where does Palestine stop? Where does it end? Which parts are Palestinian? Which parts are not Palestinian? And the judges came back in 2021 and basically said, look, we believe that Palestine as a state before the International Criminal Court is made up of Gaza and the West Bank, including East Jerusalem. So that means that despite the fact that Israeli officials and the IDF, etc., are citizens of a state, Israel, that is not a member state of the ICC can investigate and prosecute those crimes because they're happening on the state of Palestine. It also means that any citizen of Palestine can be investigated by the ICC, which is important for October 7th, because it's very likely that the ICC prosecutor will issue arrest warrants in the coming days or weeks for Hamas perpetrators whose atrocities were committed in Israel, which again is the territory of a state that is not party to the ICC. But because they're Palestinian, the ICC can exercise their jurisdiction. An easier way, perhaps, to kind of figure this out is, look, we're having this conversation around Israel-Palestine for political reasons, but no one doubts that when Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, that it was somehow wrong for the ICC to investigate Vladimir Putin, even though Vladimir Putin is the president of a country that is not a member state of the ICC.
The International Criminal Court in The Hague has issued an arrest warrant for Russian President Vladimir Putin. In a statement, the ICC said the warrant is in connection with allegations of war crimes in Ukraine.
It would make no sense if states could join the ICC, but then citizens of other countries could come in and commit atrocities, and the ICC would be like, oh, well, we can't actually do anything about this. We can only investigate those who accepted the jurisdiction. No, that doesn't protect anyone.
Right. Otherwise, it would make the ICC pretty toothless. So that makes sense. Given all that, though, the flip side is that the ICC has given no indication that warrants for Israeli officials or Hamas officials are imminent, and it's made no comment on the claims. When asked about these media reports of the arrest warrants, the ICC told NBC News that it, quote, has an ongoing independent investigation in relation to the situation in the state of Palestine. So then why the concern?
So it's an interesting point. So first of all, totally makes sense that the ICC prosecutor is not talking about arrest warrants. We shouldn't really know whether the ICC is going to issue arrest warrants at any given time because it's a highly confidential and sensitive process. The question then arises, why is Israel afraid of something that the ICC hasn't actually done yet? I think it comes down to the fact that they know that something is coming. I've written about this before. Just like the United Nations and other countries, etc., the ICC just isn't immune to espionage and intelligence gathering, right? And that is something that we all know Israel is very, very adept at. I think it's just pretty clear that they got whiff of something coming down the pipeline and shared it internally. Whether or not they're getting it right, I don't know. You know, intelligence doesn't always get.
Okay, that's where I wanted to end it, right there. Because I just felt like that was sort of the pivotal issue as to why. Because I was also trying to figure out what was going on there, because we didn't hear the ICC actually make any sort of statements about this. But the way that this journalist has sort of explained it, it makes perfect sense, right? Israel is deeply involved in spying and intelligence gathering, and the ICC can be compromised technologically or otherwise by Israel to gain information ahead of time, and it sort of it really helps line up the dominoes for me, if you will, as to why Israeli officials have been expressing concern about the ICC in this way, especially when it's people like Benjamin Netanyahu who are all the way at the top. And it makes me think, hey, maybe the ICC is gearing up to actually issue arrest warrants, I'm gonna try and tame my optimism about it, but I certainly have a little hope. Because the fact is that, you know, it's affected other countries, these sorts of arrest warrants, right? Russia couldn't go to South Africa for the latest BRICS meeting down there because of, you know, and things like that. So, anyway, that's all we got on that for now. Let's move on to this penultimate video here. Exactly, obsessive, though. Yeah, that's the very thought. Yeah. Great minds think alike, I suppose. All right, let's move along. This is from AP from 3 hours ago. Israel and Hamas appear close to a ceasefire deal. Oh, actually, no, let's watch this one. Sorry, hold on.
Well, Israel's war cabinet.
Wait. No. We are going to watch this one. For a second, I was going to skip over because I thought it was the same thing. But no, this is not the same thing. Let's watch this. This is from CBS News. Netanyahu risks power if he doesn't expand into Rafah.
Meeting today to discuss the latest ceasefire proposal and planned offensive into Rafah. And families of Israeli hostages held by Hamas are stepping up their pressure to reach a deal. In Tel Aviv, protesters blocked a main highway during the morning rush hour. They urged Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu not to invade Rafah, arguing that an invasion could hurt or kill any of their loved ones who may still be held there. CBS News foreign correspondent Rami Inocencio has more from Tel Aviv. Rami, why has an invasion of Rafah become politically necessary for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, at least in his mind, to continue with? And how much is there a shift happening there in Israel right now in terms of popular support for that?
Yeah, Lana, good to see you. Yeah, if Netanyahu doesn't go through with this Rafah invasion, one of the extreme far-right parties of his government has basically threatened to pull out of the coalition, which could then collapse his government. And that threat came from his Minister of Finance, who's the leader of the religious Zionist party, a settler himself. He said, quote, if God forbid you cancel the order to go into Rafah, your government has no right to exist. So Netanyahu...
Now, the party he's talking about is the party that he's a part of. So, this is a weird way to put it. Yeah.
Is facing pressure on his right flank. And if national elections were called today, polls indicate that Netanyahu's bloc would lose power, and then a former Prime Minister, Benny Gantz, who is more moderate, would then take control. So for Netanyahu...
Yeah, that's all I wanted to, because it was this whole thing is just fucked, right? And suggesting that Benny Gantz is more moderate it's like saying Lauren Boebert is slightly more moderate than MTG, right? It's like, oh, thanks for the distinction, pal. Benny Gantz, if you're not aware, used to be the head of the IDF. If I'm not mistaken. Hold on, let me just make sure about that. Oh no, he was an army general and served as the Minister of Defense, which I guess you could technically call the head of the military to some degree. It's not more far right, but he's far right enough that it doesn't fucking matter, and calling him moderate is just disingenuous. You know? Like technically, oh no, he's not as far right. But what does that mean in this context? He's still pro everything that's happening. Okay, now let's watch this video, where apparently, supposedly, Israel and Hamas appear closer to a ceasefire deal. CBS.
International mediators are trying to wrap up a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas after nearly 7 months of war. These mediators, the U.S., Egypt, Qatar, have been working repeatedly trying to end the war in recent months. So far, those efforts have failed. But this time, they say that there is room for optimism. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken was in the region this week. He says that Israel has made generous concessions in the talks. Hamas, meanwhile, says it is looking at the latest proposals in a positive light, and it's sending a delegation to Cairo in the coming days to continue these efforts. The general contours of the deal appear clear. It would take place in several stages over several months, but Israel would gradually withdraw troops from Gaza in exchange for hostages being released by Hamas. But there are still key details that need to be worked out. The main one is Hamas's demand that the ceasefire not be a pause in fighting, but a complete end to the war, including a full Israeli withdrawal from Gaza. It's not clear whether Israel is ready to make that commitment.
No kidding. Well, once again, I am very cautiously optimistic, but...
I was having a conversation with an old classmate from high school because I forgot to make my...
But it's difficult, to say the least, considering what's been said in the last few days. Okay, let's end it with a little comedy. Here's a comedian that we've looked at before, and we're gonna listen to again. This is Sammy Obeid.
I was having a conversation with an old classmate from high school because I forgot to make myself not searchable on Facebook. And he was like, Sammy, what do you think about these college protesters? I said, I think they're doing the right thing. Well, they're trespassing. I'm like, dude, if I pay $60K in tuition, I can sit in whatever bush I want. Do you understand me? If they are trespassing, then give them their money back. Like, what did you think was going to happen? For years, you told these kids they had no future job, that they were addicted to social media, that they were going to end up being homeless. Well, now guess what? Living in tents in front of Harvard. That's what you get. And he's like, they're un-American and they're terrorists. I was like, do you know why they're protesting? They're calling for their campuses to divest from Israel. He's like, what's a divest? I'm like, that might be the problem. To divest is a form of boycott. Last I checked, boycotting, the most American shit you can do. It's actually how this country was founded. And they're not terrorists. They're not blowing themselves up with vests filled with explosives, which would be another form of divest. This is America, and these institutions do have the right to support Israel. But then why are they going to be mad when other people are trying to settle on their land?
Boom. Okay.
If you don't...
No, don't do that. Don't do that. We don't have time for that. Well, I'm afraid that's it, folks. But we've made it through another one. So well done. It would get lonely on the space station without you. So thanks for being here, chat. Till I see you next time. Stay classy, Galactic Stream Nation. can't forget these folks. These are your galactic patrons. Gabby, Goth Dogs, Aaron W, Robot Cat, Pitchfork Dragon, The Anti-Corporatist, Vincent Morales, and Donald James X. All of these people made the right choice in life and have decided to help me here at the Galactic News Network. Without them, this whole shebang would cease to exist.
It's a great day for being sad.